You creep down the hallway, a long, shimmering set of lines on the floor, pulling your eye towards the end where you see, hunched, possibly eating mozzarella cheese out of the bag at 2 a.m, a goblin!
Yes, hello?
This is Fox Lee, she, her.
Yes, hello.
And this is Talen Lee, he, him. And we are going to talk this Decemberween about another piece of kind of free media that you can partake in at this time of year. I've been using Decemberween to try and bring to your attention stuff you can look at and engage with for free. And this is kind of on the verge of that, because what I want to talk about, what I've been planning to talk about all year, is I wanted to talk with Fox, as someone who's done this with me, about the Dimension 20 campaigns available on Dropout Dot TV. Now, originally, I had this idea of, this is just going to be about, hey, was Dropout worth the money we paid? And, yeah.
I was going to save that for, let's get started. Okay, to answer the video title, yes.
Yeah.
Next question.
Dropout is absolutely worth it. This is not counting the actually make some noise.
Fucking Game Changer.
Game Changer is very much designed to tickle my brain specifically, and I don't want to be one of the chorus of people going, Game Changer is such an interesting game because it changes every time. Yes, thank you. That is the principle. That's not an interesting kind of commentary. But in the space of Dimension 20 specifically, there is something that you and I both have a lot of insight in, which is its campaigns for TTRPGs, which we have both run and played in.
I've played a few tabletops in my time. I even got my boyfriend into it one time.
How'd that work out?
I don't know. Hey, Talen, how'd that work out?
Well, 20 years on and I'm still playing TTRPGs, so...
Is it wrong to get a boy into games just because you want him to GM for you?
Well, it is a very funny example of I was the fake RPG boy, and you were like, you want to play Dungeons and Dragons? Name all the D20s.
I never.
Besides, you got me into running tabletop RPGs with Big Eyes, Small Mouth, 2nd edition. The worst game I have ever run.
Would not recommend it. Oh, don't forget 3.0 D&D.
Oh, 3.0 D&D was the best D&D of its time.
I mean, you're not wrong, but also it's incredibly depressing that you're not wrong.
Yeah, there's a reason my blog has articles on it about every month of me just dredging up another thing from 3rd edition going, what the hell, right?
Look at this amazing new technology. Classes aren't racist anymore.
What the hell? I in fact have an article about how bad the grapple system is in 3rd edition, and then the depressing footnote that with all of these problems, it's still one of the best things you can do because it's a way that a fighter can ruin a wizard's day.
Almost every one of your 3.x articles is this was a massive fucking disaster pile of nonsense, and it's just incredibly sad that it was by far better than anything that came before. Please play 4th edition.
Now, with that in mind, to nail our colours to the mast, we are both, I would be reasonable to say, we are 4th edition Dungeons and Dragons tryhards. That's the edition we got invested in.
I have repeatedly described this in terms of 4th edition is my forever girl.
Yeah.
It's not like I haven't dated elsewhere.
Indeed, I'm running a Blades in the Dark game for us right now.
But there is somebody to whom I am in my heart committed.
Yeah. And that means that one of the things that's probably not going to come up much, but won't not come up, is system in this conversation around these different campaigns.
That's going to come up a lot for me.
Yeah, well, but also, I want to provide the framing there of, we're not 5th edition people. We don't,
no, that's true, and I'm in a lot of cases going to go well, I can't speak about this specifically in this instance, but in general.
Yeah. If there's any problem with, the system of the game that comes up that affects our opinion of the game, then we're going to have to, it would have to be something particularly egregious. That's a hint for later.
And attendant to that disclaimer is that also we're not, D&D as a brand.
No.
Diehards, and we're definitely not among the gamers who are D&D should always be the thing you choose, or like, calling TTRPGs D&D the same way that people call smartphones iPhones. That is not what's going on here either. We have tried a lot of systems. We didn't like most of them, but we understand that there's different tools for different jobs.
And with all that in mind, as your starting point, as your framing, I have here a tier list for all of the Dimension 20 campaigns.
Oh, tier lists are so hot right now.
Yeah, but also someone else has already done all the bloody work.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt it.
The plan is to just go through these in timeline order and rank them as we see fit.
Nice. This is going to be quite fun, actually, because I don't know the timeline order for the most part.
No.
Because we started watching the ones that were free content, in fact. We checked out the ones that were available on YouTube.
Yeah, which is the first 2 seasons of Fantasy High, Escape from the Bloodkeep, the first season of Unsleeping City, and I think... I want to say also Tiny Heist, but I'm not sure. The first episode of a lot of these are available on YouTube to check out, and honestly, you should look at them and go, hey, if I like this, then the quality is sustained throughout. And certainly if you're the kind of person who got into actual plays or want to get into actual plays, I do think this is a very good place to start. Critical Role is generally regarded as like the grandfather of this whole genre, and if you, like me, went at one point, I'm going to go back and check out the important one from the start. These are better produced, better edited, and they don't have Twitch chat on stream, so you don't have to see what people have to say about the women playing the game.
Ooh, there's a little tidbit I didn't know about. Yeah, well, I mean, never mind. We're not here to talk about that, but yeah, that definitely, I would rather watch a game without seeing their Twitch chat.
Exactly.
This is very true.
All right.
And anyway, if you do like them, you can do what we did and go, these people seem like a jolly good time, and go pay an extremely reasonable fee to watch it on a platform that, isn't corporate dog shit eroding the fabric of our society day by day.
Mm-hmm. We have our tiers here arranged into S, A, B, C, which, that's all fine and dandy, but I would like to just append, we're going to put in the D category a special of didn't watch.
Does that mean we're not allowed to put things in D unless we didn't watch them?
Well, none of these are that bad. The worst of them, we still watched all of it.
Yeah. Alright, well, I'll fight with that when we get to that point, if it happens, I guess.
Didn't watch / direct. How about that?
I mean, it's D. It stands for both of these things.
Alright then. In which case, first up we have Fantasy High, the first season, which has got a year appended to it, the name of which momentarily escapes my memory because...
Wasn't it just called Fantasy High?
Yeah, actually, that was just Fantasy High.
Yeah, and they weren't planning on doing multiples of this specific one at the start.
I don't know, I get the impression that Brennan is the kind of person who approaches a story outline with, I've got 5 novels in mind. The Dungeon Master for this one was Brennan Lee Mulligan, and the... players were Emily Axford as Fig Faith, Zach Ayama as Gorgog Thistlespring, Siobhan Thompson as Adaine Abenant, Lou Wilson playing Fabian Seacaster, Ali Beardsley as Kristen Applebees, and Brian Murphy as Riz Gukgak. What do you feel about this one?
It's hard to evaluate my feelings toward Fantasy High.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know, because I know we're going to have at least one area where something about this bugs the crap out of you and doesn't bug me.
Is it America?
Yeah, it's the intense Americanness.
Yeah.
I think that's perfectly reasonable to let the people of America tell stories about being American, because what else do they know?
Okay, on one hand, you're kind of right, but on the other hand, part of the reason I watch fantasy, part of the reason I so strongly favor non-historical fantasy is because everything isn't in fucking America. And
bonus dog content.
But what if we took D&D and made it explicitly America rather than just a, pseudo-medieval fantasy world extremely colored by Americans? and especially American High School, which is a horrifying alien universe that revulses me every time I see it.
I would also add that this is not just American high school, but like a really specific window of American media high school. Like, this is 80s John Hughes style high school with modern technology. Like, they have smartphones and everything. So, like, it's a little extra weird.
It's the high school of the people playing the game, updated to now.
Yeah, which creates some interesting weird discrepancies, but like, I'm fine with that. I think that this is a really good example of a weak A or strong B.
I feel like it might be a B for me. And I'm not just saying that so I can position the other Fantasy High seasons around it as I choose. But yeah, I like when I think back to how I felt about this at the time, I think I really enjoyed all the characters.
Yeah.
Kristen did not become deeply tedious until the end.
Spoilers.
I was really pulling for her. I was like, this is brilliant. This is a character who has been like posed as like a squeaky clean church girl and is obviously being played by a turbo queer, and her whole story is going to be a loss of faith and her finding something to replace it. I'm like, that's really interesting. That's really exciting.
It should resonate with me more.
Yeah. 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 And like, I don't know how much we want to avoid spoiling these or not. But...
Yeah, I don't, well, by necessity, because Fantasy High is a sequence of, I guess, spoiler warning, we are going to discuss things that happen in these campaigns.
The world-changing story opportunities that were presented to this character are the kind of shit I would kill for, and they are squandered by this character's inability to take anything seriously. Which I don't think is Beardsley's problem. Because they've played other characters in other games who I quite liked and who played serious roles.
Yeah, but none of those characters were ever presented with an opportunity to carry the story in a serious moment the way that Beardsley was. The way that Applebee's was.
Yes, no.
We'll talk more about that.
Kind of has you there, but
we'll talk more about that later. But the point is,
I'm not criticizing the player necessarily. I don't know to what degree this is something they struggled with, or if this is just a character thing and all you can do is laugh and make a stupid joke in the moment, or like I'm trying to avoid picking on a person.
Yeah, the future history of this character makes it very hard for me to not see this as something that this player likes doing and thinks is funny. And I really don't like it. But also, this got me to watch a whole season of 28 hours of a bunch of dorks playing Dungeons and Dragons in a system I don't play, and enjoying it the whole way.
And for the most part, I really fucking liked what they did with it. I enjoyed all the characters except for the end of Kristen. Tracker is great. It's a really good NPCs just in general.
Zelda as well.
The twist I did not necessarily see coming. I mean, I definitely got bits of it, but other bits of it I didn't. Some of the fights feel a bit deterministic, but it's hard to say whether that's the GM intending a can't win hard fight because there's a story thing going on here, or an accidental TBK because they did play like bozos at first.
There is a thing, I've written about this. I think that there's a lot of work Brennan Lee Mulligan as a GM does to create redundancy in his planning. In that I think that he had it set up so that no matter who made the choices they did, he had a believable excuse at the end of the story as to why it all worked out. And that works for... That's something that's very strong in his particular toolkit, because there's a prophecy in this, and the way it gets fulfilled is one way, but if you look at all the characters in the lineup who could have done the thing that happens in the prophecy, you realize that if any of them had picked it, you would have a believable excuse for why the prophecy applies to them, which is some good solid prophecy bullshit writing. It's good Barnum stuff. It's horoscopes turned to a Dungeons and Dragons story. I
don't know if I've said this before on this channel, but my belief about D&D plots is anything you have pre-planned should be ready to change if the players come up with a better idea on the fly. Like, and specifically, when I say this, I'm talking about, like, mysteries and shit. Like, if they come up with a good solution that is satisfying to everyone, and it's better than what you had in mind, just let that be the solution. That's great, actually.
Uh-huh. Alright, so that's 15 minutes on the first game.
Whoops. Oh, well.
Next up, we have Escape from the Bloodkeep.
It's the second one?
That's the second one.
Shit. This was tons of fun.
The cast of this one, again, the GM was Brennan Lee Mulligan, and you had Rekha Shankar playing Maggie, Matthew Mercer playing Leland, Amy Vorpal playing Efink, Murder Death, Mike Trapp was Sockbar, Erika Ishii as Lilith, and Ife Nwadwe, who I'm gonna be really cautious about how I pronounce that surname. I do not know if I get that right.
They've said it on actually a lot. It's Nwadwe.
I don't think I'm being bad. I don't think I'm messing up there. As Marcus St. Vincent.
This is
straight S.
Really good. I don't know if I put it in S because I loved almost everything about it, and especially Leyland is, I'm a sucker for that. That's serving everything I want out of a sad emo boy.
Leyland and Marcus are both just absolutely top tier characters,
and
so's Lilith.
Trap's energy.
Trap.
Yeah, fucking the dog, Jeremy. Is it? I love Jeremy so much, and just the absolute willingness to make up new horrifying bullshit for this creature to do. Fucking delight. Erica is always. I love Erica.
They are so funny.
Sorry, I should they.
Well, no, she, they.
I mean, they're both, but yeah. If you always go she for a she, they, it's like you're ignoring the they part, and that feels kind of rude.
Yeah, perfectly reasonable approach. But yeah, and none of this is to like, because effectively what I've just done there is gone, hey, everyone except Amy and Rekha rules, and like that's not to talk down to those players. It's just in this game. Which is 6 hours long. It's a very, 6 episodes long. It's a very short campaign compared to the other ones. This campaign is tight. It is fast. It's working in a trope space that's very obvious and very well worn. And it just goes, all right, you know exactly what we're doing here. So bam, 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 bam. And it uses the preloading of everything it's working on. So that instead of having to explain to you like where the Ents are coming from, it's just like, no, there's an Ent trying to punch a flying flying skyship.
You know there'd be Ents at this point.
Yeah. Because you know Ents are here, and you know what it means when there's two girl halflings with one carrying the other away from the mountain. Like, there's a lot of really obvious stuff, but they use that obviousness to play off it in a really excellent way. I loved this campaign.
And the only thing I was going to say is that I might bump it down to A tier because I had to watch someone simulating giving birth on stream, which I do not like.
There's going to be a consistent thread of, and then Rekha did something gross.
Rekha really likes, like, body gross out stuff, and I really don't.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna, once again, I'm trying not to pick on a person. I don't think there's anything wrong with finding that funny or enjoyable, but I wish I hadn't had to see it, is all.
So I think S. You want to put it in A?
It can stay S. I'm not that committed to bringing it down.
And these aren't nailed in space. We can move them around as things go on. If we wind up with a whole bunch of S's, we might bump things down.
We are not a monolith.
Yeah.
This graph cannot possibly represent the entirety of all of our feelings at the same time.
All right. Now, speaking of too American, next up we have the Unsleeping City Season 1.
Yeah, I kind of do have the exact same problem as I do with Fantasy High, which is like, I enjoyed everything about this except the self-obsessed New Yorkness of New York that is just tedious every time.
I liked this campaign despite how much it was up its own arse about being New York, a city that cannot possibly be ever as good as its reputation.
It's also the most important city in the world because it's where all the magic comes from.
Yeah, like, it's got tickets on itself. I don't care. But
what everybody did with this!
Yes.
I love Kingston.
Kingston is the kind of... Like, I remember watching this and just going like, oh, okay, as a GM, one of the things that really renewed me to do a better job that I've been trying to do these past year has been seeing Brennan make space for a character like Kingston and just realizing like, oh, I could be doing that. I could be making it so players can feel that connected and that in ownership of the world around them and their ideas. So, like, I for all that this series is a complete whiff of farts for me as it's a story about New York. I don't care. Like, New York might as well be, from Galadriel or wherever I can't even think of a location in Lord of the Rings. It could be Bag End. I don't care.
Oh, yeah. The town of Galadriel.
Ellie, please. Ellie, please.
Bonus dog content. I need to make you a little graphic that you could pop up on the video.
Yeah.
Yeah. But...
and I guess because I need to do the actual cast for this one.
Yeah.
Brennan Lee Mulligan is the GM, and the players are Zach Iyama playing Riki Matsui, Emily Axford playing Sophie
Bikes.
Sophie Bikes.
Bicicleta.
Yes. Lou Wilson playing Kingston Brown, Siobhan Thompson playing Misty Moore, Brian Murphy playing Kugrash, and Ali Beardsley playing Pete the Plug.
God, also, Ricky is fantastic. We love a himbo.
We love a himbo paladin.
We love a himbo.
A himbo paladin is always going to have a high value audience here. We deeply appreciate them.
Though that does kind of lead me into my other problem with this game, which is just that this is the first one we run up against where, like, it really shouldn't be D&D. Like, I kind of get it. Like, it's a system they know at this point and they feel familiar with, and Brennan has spoken about how he feels, like, empowered to use it in this way, but it's just a lot of places where it grinds at the edges because it's uncomfortable being made into this thing. Like, who was wearing what armor in that game?
We know for a fact that Riki Matsui was wearing heavy armor, and that's why he was terrible at stealth, but it doesn't come up for anyone else, and everyone's armor classes are quite bad, but also that might just be a 5th ed thing, I don't know.
I think it is a 5th ed thing, but there's no diegetic reason, like, that Riki is just bad at this stuff, and...
Yeah.
Like, gear is always one of those big things that doesn't work in a lot of D&D campaigns, and that's... They tried to solve this by making magical items a lot more optional, but really it's the mundane items that should be a lot more optional, in my opinion.
Hell if I know. I really don't know 5th edition that well, and I treasure my ignorance, because it's a thing where, like, once you're aware enough of how 5th edition works, you will not help but getting involved in the conversations about ways that it fails, because that's just how system-driven conversations go. And by keeping myself blissfully ignorant of it, I get to go, sorry, I don't know about your crap system, and I don't care.
Also really emphasizes the skill problem you run up with when you're applying D&D to other genres of games.
Yeah.
There's, like, 3 useful skills in this game.
Yeah.
If you guess they're all wisdom-based, you'd be right.
There's definitely an allure to changing to something more modern setting, but what I will say is the miniatures and tactical positional combat is a super important part of these campaigns, I think, and therefore whatever system you replaced Dungeons and Dragons with would need to be another one that allows for that kind of play, and I don't know what they'd use.
Oh, absolutely. The materiality of these games is great, and I love it, and they should pick systems that allow them to take advantage of that, for sure. And for what it's worth, I'm not even talking about modern versus fantasy or anything like that. It's more of a cinematic genre kind of concept.
So yeah, where do you put this one? Is this about as good as Fantasy High? Because it also has, like, so many delightful characters.
Yeah,
it does Lugash.
Let's put A in it. Let's put it in A. And I might feel differently about that later, but...
Now we have our first full guest workup, which is Tiny Heist.
Wow, Tiny Heist was so early as well!
It really was.
Oh.
Tiny Heist, you had Brennan Lee Mulligan as your game master, and your players are Justin McElroy as Rick Diggins, Clint McElroy as Boomer Coleoptera, Jessica Ross as Agnes, Lily Dew as TI-83, Griffin McElroy, the McElboy, as Bean, and Travis McElroy as Cargo Jones. So all those conversational topics about the about the weaknesses of Dungeons and Dragons for this kind of system. Just, I think they come up again.
I'm going to fold them in half because they're like twice as important here. There's so often shit comes up where it's like, well, my character sheet says I should be able to do this, and Brennan struggles for a way to say, to not shortchange the player without letting something stupid happen.
Yeah.
And, like, that's exactly the kind of thing that I'm talking about. This, I would have loved to see this with a system more like what they use later for Mentopolis.
Yeah.
Or Magic and Misfits.
But also, the materiality of this one was super important to the set and the scenes. Being able to just use various toys as props was really cool.
I mean, the final set that they did for this.
Yeah, with a whole bunch of raging toys across a bed. It was very good.
Right. And a game that has fucking cargo chodes. We got an off-brand Transformer and an off-brand Lego Man. And the Lego Man's gimmick is that he, like, pops his head off and becomes a different guy, and nobody can tell even if he does it while he's right in front. I fucking love this shit. It's so good.
It has one of the truly best jokes where Rick Diggins kills another Lego Man, pops that guy's head off his body, swaps his head onto their body, so now that's him, then swaps the body for the head.
Because he needs the uniform.
So he just, like, transfers his soul with
Don't ask
soul
how that works. It's so good. I love it.
Top tier nonsense.
Very
I loved it a great
enjoyable.
deal. So, what tier? Because mechanical limitations, but also, like, really fun. It's actually weird in hindsight now thinking about it, like, just how little Griffin, who's usually, like, the attention center of the McElboys.
Which one was he?
He was the little monk who wore a banana skin.
It was Bean. Okay. Yeah.
But it's weird that he didn't demand that much attention, and the core things that we remember are Cargo Jones and Rick Diggins.
Yeah, like, not to put down anyone else involved in this, but Rick Diggins did steal the show for this one.
And so did Boomer. Don't forget just
Boomer was a lot of fun as well.
How much of the story was their dad pulling the story over, parking it in a ditch and saying, I want to talk to you about improv theater. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Where do you reckon it goes?
I don't know if it goes in S, but I feel like I definitely liked it better than Unsleeping City, so...
There.
They're also in order within the tier.
Sure, let's say that.
Okay, let's say that.
Alright, now we have the first one that Fox has not watched, which is The Crown of Candy.
Alright, I gotta abstain from this because I'm just not a fan of anyone can die, dun 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 kind of gameplay or storytelling.
Yeah, so Crown of Candy is really good. I would put it in S as a hard and easy choice, but the thing is...
Sorry, a hard and easy choice.
Like, it's a hard S as an easy choice.
Oh, okay.
But the thing is, there is a way in which part of it shows the weaknesses of the system they're using, where there are certain times when some characters just aren't very useful or effective at all. And it has an added problem in that the prequel series is better. So I can't put it in S
that's wrong.
because it needs space above it. But Crown of Candy is really good. Like, if you are the kind of, like, if the silliness of the premise is a bother to you, still give it a shot because you have a lot of character actors doing a really good job making everything feel very whole and very real. And because of the silliness coupled with the lethality of the whole thing, you have a story which is very willing to let characters push their emotional range to places that you don't normally see in these games. There's a lot of other games where someone just makes a dumb joke to get out of an emotionally tense moment, and in Crown of Candy, you get to see how some of these players would handle delivering their last words, and it's cool. It is, however, ultimately what it is, which is to say, it's a goofy take on Game of Thrones. So, you know, if you don't like either of those suggestions, you're not going to like Crown of Candy. Really strong series, though.
I only like Adventure Time when it's not being Game of Thrones. But, since you're the one who's positioning this, above or below Tiny Heist?
Ooh, you know what? I would actually... I do think it's better than Tiny Heist. Alright, next up we have Pirates of Leviathan.
Oh, I love this. I think Pirates is S tier.
Yeah.
I didn't care much about the plot, but anyone who has heard me talk about like media or any of our anime reviews or anything in general will know that I don't really care about plots that much to begin with. I'm here for the characters, and this has fucking top tier characters.
Sorry, just to go back, the Crown of Candy cast was Brennan Lee Mulligan as GM. The starting character lineup was Ali Beardsley playing Liam Wilhelmina of House Jawbreaker. Brian Murphy played Sir Theobald Gumblar. Emily Axford played Princess Jet Rocks. Siobhan Thompson played Princess Ruby Rocks. Lou played King Amathar of House Rocks. And Zach Yama played Chancellor Lapin Cadbury. And again, I cannot get... I'm not trying to sit here and go like...
Is he a chocolate bunny?
He's a chocolate bunny. He is a chocolate bunny, and indeed one of the points he makes... One of the things that the player plays with is the idea that this man is very emotionally unfulfilled, as if he is hollow inside.
Meh.
Pirates of Leviathan, your GM is Brennan Lee Mulligan, and the players are Marisha Ray playing Sunny Biscotto, Christina Ariel as Barbarella Bob Sarsaparilla Gangillan, Carlos Luna playing Cheese, Bria Iyengar as Myrtle. I'm going to be self-conscious about pronouncing her name right as well.
That one was right.
I know I got it right that time, but I'm just like, he's going to mess it up later. Matthew Mercer playing Unlucky Jack Bracco, and B. David Walters playing Marcid the Typhoon.
I don't know if we have not seen B. David Walters in anything else,
No.
have we? And I wish we had, because
Such a phenomenal voice.
I adore his performance in this, and Mercer as well. I understand Mercer is an actor and that's his thing.
He is a voice actor. Now, this chart has led us slightly astray.
No, are they not actually in chronological order?
Well, specifically,
Oh yeah, Leviathan comes up in season 2 of Fantasy High.
yeah, sophomore year should happen first. But whatever, we're talking about Pirates of Leviathan right now. And Pirates of Leviathan whips.
And you don't need to see Fantasy High to care about it.
No.
The main benefit of that is that you'll recognize like Garty and Ada beforehand, who are both top tier NPCs.
And the oh goodness me, the Warforged who's in charge.
Yeah, she rolls too.
Whose name escapes me. He says, scrolling the major NPCs tab.
Anyway, the point is, like, between those two being just excellent pirate boys and Abria just sharking it up to the camera.
There is a challenge when discussing, as the kind of person I am, when discussing people actively being, for lack of any better word, I can't really see a way to get out of this, hot, is like, how do you talk, like, because it's very easy to talk about this in a way that's very objectifying and very condescending. And I don't think Abria rules because Abria is attractive. But in this character is specifically projecting a very intentional kind of threatening appeal, and she is so good at delivering on that. And remember, this was a remote game, so she's doing this to her webcam.
She's on the entire time.
And if you watch this in like at second screen material, as it were, but if you're paying attention when you have like all the portraits and the main one talking, and then in the bottom you have all the other ones, she's not stopping. She's not switching off when other people are talking. She is menacing her webcam, and she's so good at it. It, like, little notes of affect, little focuses. The fact that, like, when someone says a word that her character particularly focuses on, she will actually lean in and like, lick her teeth at the camera. She's such a good physical performer in this.
Yeah, she's playing a spooky sea witch, and she knows how to do that in a way that's unsettlingly hot.
Yes. And like, I feel it would be dishonest to not mention it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was going to go there if you didn't.
But at the same time, I don't want to be like... Because, again, talking about Critical Role and their Twitch chat, and very self-conscious about being the kind of guy who comments on on actual play streamers being hot.
And the same is true of Bob, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Just what she's serving is not something I'm interested in.
No.
She's got that kind of classical, sultry, but innocent, like, sort of sexy baby vibe that's typical of, like, much older...
It's a Betty Boop thing. It really is specific.
Yeah, actually, that's a great example. Yeah, and, like, I'm not here for that, so, like, that kind of ruins it for me, but you cannot fault the player for delivering on this concept and absolutely performing.
And it's a staggering performance as well when you get to the very...
she fucking sings half her spells.
Yeah, and when you get to the very end of the whole thing and you hear the player break character to talk in, as it were, a natural voice, it's this kind of... Who's that extra person in the room suddenly? Like, really amazing. It clearly, very hard work, did a really good job. Not into it, but, like, you know, you couldn't not be impressed. I think Carlos playing Cheese is probably the closest thing this has to a weak link, in that the character of Cheese is just a bit of a weenus.
Cheese is kind of whatever.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I really like Sunny, and... You know, shout outs to her for doing the Loss of Faith block better than Kristen.
Uh-huh.
Dear.
Uh-huh. And, you know, speaking of, she also plays in Critical Role. She plays the Foxbait Druid in Critical Role.
Oh, there you go.
We will talk more on this another time. But okay.
So this was almost like a Critical Role crossover.
Yes. Brennan has run sessions for Critical Role. They've done a thing.
Gotcha.
In fact, there is a joke, which is in Brennan's first session running for them, he opened with the very first word of his narration was Earth. Da 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 da. And then when
Did you do the Avatar intro?
No, then the first word of the campaign, Abria ran with Brennan and Matthew played. She opens with fire, and then when Matthew Mercer winds up running a game which has both of them in it, he opens with water. It hasn't come up to a fourth time yet, but that's a thing that they're apparently all doing as like this multi-year long joke.
Okay, but it is the Avatar.
I think it is. I mean, I would have gone with the Planeteer opening because that's the order they go in my head.
Planeteers goes Earth, Fire, Wind.
Yeah, I know. Like I said, I would have done this.
Okay.
And indeed, when I did it in our Blades of the Dark game and no one noticed, I did do it in Planeteer order. Anyway. Next up, we have Fantasy High Sophomore Year. The follow-up to...
Fantasy High.
Fantasy High, yeah. Because, like, I don't know what year that would have been. Freshman?
I don't know. Americans have these weird fucking names for all the years of high school. And for some reason, junior is the third one or the second last?
Yeah, it's the second
last. Or the third one and the second last?
I don't know.
I don't know. I have no fucking idea what they're on about.
Yeah, we just number them.
Yeah.
After you finish with 7th grade, you do 8th grade.
You know what comes after year 8? Year fucking 9.
Uh-huh. But far be it from us to talk about the many ways we run things better.
Anyway, this is the best Fantasy High, though.
Hey?
Yeah, that's kind of where it's got to go based on that, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
I mean, mostly because Ida's here.
Ida's here.
Fig, I think, is at her best.
Yeah, this is the least bad Fig gets.
The entire plot line with, my brain keeps filling in Adarin, but that's your character, not Siobhan's character. Adane, thank you. And her sister.
Yeah, that's
was
perfect.
Extremely touching and sweet. And just lovely. And at Kristen's weakest moments, she got called on them by her girlfriend and had to deal with consequences.
Yeah.
Which is how it should work.
Which really was, like, annoyingly, it's the best thing Kristen is present for, and unfortunately, Kristen is again asked to carry the end of this campaign, and it's kind of the weakest part of the whole thing. But
yeah, that's true.
But, you know, oh well.
It was fine because it seemed okay at the time, and only in the next season do we know how badly it turned out.
Yeah. And also the way that this narrative seems to treat the time when Tracker was upset with Kristen as a both sides thing, as opposed to, no, Kristen really messed up and Kristen has continued to mess up.
See, I don't think that's true in this season.
In this season, it's not.
Yeah.
But when you look at it as a whole, it's like, oh, okay, no, there's this one time,
Yeah.
and they're treating them all as like
Because
these,
we're sort of given to take the side of the character that we stay with after this. Yeah.
who I would very much not like to stay with.
Yeah.
Because she's ruined the ending of 2 things now. But surely they go and do it a third time.
Once again, ending only ruined in retrospect. Otherwise, definitely the best season. Genuinely found all the stupid party kid stuff funny.
Yes.
You know what? Also, probably it had the least high school in it, and that was a draw for me.
The party
because
shrimp.
This one is about their the extracurricular project or whatever. Does it technically take place on summer break?
I think it does.
Spring break? Which one's...
I don't know.
Fuck it, I don't even know. Yeah, the point is, they're not at school most of the time. It's a road trip movie, and that's more fun than school.
It has some really good stuff around Sandra Lynn Faith, Fig's mum.
Yes.
This whole characterization of this character is like, oh, she is a flawed person. Like, she is a whole and flawed person, and that has tension around it, and, you know, that has ramifications of how her kids react. And that's really good.
Shadowcat, really fun villain.
Excellent villain. I genuinely like this villain better than I like the heroes that are opposing her. I want this villain to get away and do more.
This is one of the only seasons where I was genuinely irritated at the players for not picking up on a point of the mystery much sooner. Because, like, it is the kind of thing that clicked with me just because that's the kind of thing that I look for. And I'm like, oh, well, obviously that, right? And then, like, even at the end, it seemed like they hadn't fully processed that, even though they'd sort of been told it openly at that point. Come on, keep up, guys!
We also got some truly excellent, like, minor NPCs, like Boggy the Froggy.
Oh, this is the first season Buggy the Froggy shows up!
And Chungle Down Bim, who remains one of my favorite NPCs in this whole landscape.
Yeah, the whole visit to Leviathan, very cool. Ada is incredible. I love her. She's the best. She made me cry a lot of times.
Yes.
And the way Brennan plays her is so...
wonderfully intense.
Yeah, that's exactly how it is. And also the bit with the elves and the stupid elf nonsense is very fun.
Garty.
Oh yeah, and it's where Garty shows up on Leviathan. Leviathan is a good place for characters.
Garty is an interesting NPC because there's on one level there is something that they do that actively annoys me, right? Where Garty describes like, I'm into this because my species. Like, they explain something about themselves via their species. Which, like, don't get me wrong, I love the idea of, part celestial, like, what's a celestial version of a succubus? That's super interesting. I like that.
Yeah, like, I hate that when it happens with, because I'm an orc or whatever, but when it happens with because I'm an extraplanar being for whom the concept of morality is, like, tied to an objective reality that necessarily influences me, that's more compelling, I think.
Basically, I'm in a similar boat, and like, I get it if the thing I am is something magical and inhuman. Like, all right, yeah, that's going to be different. But it's frustrating me because on the one hand, I do really like the idea of like, what does the personality of this ideology-driven outsider entity look like, and how does that become a person? That's cool. I just wish they didn't explain themselves with like, here is how an element of myself is, specially based. Which, whatever. Also, it's not in here, but also we skipped past it in Pirates of the Leviathan, which is Garty has one of the best lines I've ever heard in any of these campaigns, which is when all of the sex workers are hanging around and, flirting a little bit, Garty says, well, we could all just put each other on one another's tabs, or we could get something done.
Fucking love
Which is just like, I love that as a very gracious way to make it clear of like, this is the kinds of people we are. We all know this, but we're not going to go into detail about it. And it has that elegance as a line of dialogue. I love it. So where do we put this? It's your solid A. I think that's good.
Yeah, I think it's a solid A. I think, yeah.
All right.
What's that's immediately in front of it?
Right now, Unsleeping City Season 1.
Oh, the live is part of the thumbnail for... Yeah, cool.
Inexplicably, they decided to call this season live because effectively they were just doing less editing. No editing, just less editing.
Weird.
And like they were streaming on Twitch at the same time, which is cool.
Ah, that makes more sense.
Unsleeping City Season 2. better than season 1.
I think so. Largely because Pete is a lot less annoying in this season.
The villain ties into something a little more interesting to me.
Trying to remember who the villain of season 2 was now. I mean, you can't tell me because that would be a spoiler, but
yeah,
we're trying to avoid that kind of spoiler scale stuff. Oh yes, I remember. Yeah, much more like conceptual kind of.
And Unsleeping City Chapter 2 has Cody.
And I do love I love Kugrash too, though.
Kugrash is great. Cody's amazing.
You know what though? It's also. It also has in it some of the more annoying Unsleeping City stuff for me, because there's this whole sort of back and forth with Ricky and his weaponry.
Oh yeah,
and that really shat me up the wall. Like, there were these moments where I was like, oh, clearly that's meant to be X, Y, Z. And the characters do something completely different with it. And it's not that that's wrong. It's just a lot less satisfying than what was in my mind.
Yeah, because they're on a different wavelength.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a genuine bummer. You're right.
Yeah, and it made a very sort of messy, weird non-arc for Ricky, which, you know, I guess is better than the first game where he didn't have an arc because he was already perfect.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Also,
but he was also perfect here, and he had a different arc for some reason.
Cast for this one is Brennan Lee Mulligan as your DM, Zach Oyama as Ricky Matsui, Emily Axford as Sophia Lee, Lou Wilson as Kingston Brown, Siobhan Thompson as Anastasia Igalisowski, Brian Murphy as Cody Night Angel Walsh, and Ali Beardsley as Pete Conlon.
God, I think I really just enjoy my sense of humor.
Yeah.
Like, a lot.
A lot.
This is going to be an ongoing theme.
That's a secret that's going to come up again later.
Yeah, and it was really enjoyable seeing Pete turn into a character I actually kind of liked and respected.
Yeah. Because
it demonstrated that I don't, in fact, have a problem with Ali Beardsley.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that, again, there's going to be more on that front later. But for now, Unsleeping City is a online campaign. It was a Zoom one, which has with it a couple of problems. The most notable one is the audio is just not as good.
Yeah. Not everyone had a good webcam set up because no one was prepared for the fucking nonsense that happened at this point.
And Emily and Brian were in the same house and had to effectively find ways to sound cancel themselves from one another.
That's rough.
Like, they're genuinely material problems. Not a complaint about anything. The overall point of the story, pretty good. I think that the villain of this one, well, the villains, really excellent work there. Still problems with 5th edition D&D.
Yeah, the problem that I had with Unsleeping City, even more so here. Though, slightly offset here as well, because Brennan did just go, okay, here is a subsystem lifted from other game concepts, which is really pretty necessary for telling this kind of story. And I do think that's what you need to do when you want to use D&D to tell stories that are not... D&D is a genre, you know? And when you go outside that genre, you lose more and more, so you have to put something in there to make it work better.
To use prototype theory as an example, there is definitely a thing that is the most D&D kind of campaign. You can definitely point to it like, okay, the system handles that completely perfectly. And the more you move away from that, you don't stop being able to use the system. There is a point where it snaps. But there is a lot of stuff in that zone of not pure core true D&D's most appropriate uses that still works just fine.
Especially if you're playing with a bunch of professional actors and comedians.
Yeah, who obviously...
you can carry a lot of shit that's not within the mechanics.
Yeah.
If everyone is good at improv to start with.
Mm-hmm. But also you lose a lot... Because this is an online campaign, they lost a lot of the materiality that they were really, really good at.
Yeah.
And we'll talk more about that, again, later. Okay. So, happy with it where it is?
Yeah, I think so.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Mice and Murder. Mice and Murder...
Yeah, I think so.
...has 2 players who I consistently yelled at the TV over. Mice and Murder has a player, in my opinion, ruining multiple scenes of incredible importance where everyone else is firing on all cylinders because the player can't approach things in the reality of the story that they're in. And I really, really genuinely unhappy with that. And this is still one of my favorite things Dimension 20 has. This series rules.
I mean, I can only really think of one scene that I feel was ruined by a player just carrying an inappropriate vibe that didn't match with it. Oh no, wait, we're talking about the vicar, aren't we?
Yeah.
Who's not a vicar.
Yeah.
Because, like, I once again, don't have a problem with the man. Raphael Chastain is fine, but he doesn't know how to be a British religious community leader. So instead he plays a Catholic priest.
So the cast here is Brendan Lee Mulligan is your game master, Katie Maravich, the unflappable, as Gangi Green.
This is like the first thing I saw her in.
Yeah, you had
We
no
had not
idea.
watched any newsroom or anything.
You hadn't watched
yet.
any breaking news prior to this
Just like,
point. You had
she
no
does a
idea.
surprisingly good, like, Cockney voice.
Yeah, like she's a good actor. Sam Reich, the only game we have Sam Reich in, as Buxter $ Boyd.
I feel like that's a crime because he is a fucking delight in this character.
So good. I love Buxter so much. There are so many excellently directed actual play moments. Like, not, this character is doing things like they would in a movie, or this actor is carrying this scene like in theatre. Like, it is specifically, has to be the framing of game master, game mechanics, player, reaction sequences, and Sam is a delight at so many of them. Rekha Shankar as Daisy Dumpstayer, Raphael Chastain as Vicar Ian Prescott, Ali Beardsley as Lars Vandenchomp, and Grant O'Brien as Detective Sylvester Cross.
I really liked Beardsley in this as well.
Exactly.
Lars is a great character.
Lars is a delight, and Lars is a delight because, like, part of why I like Lars so much is that at no point does the way Lars chooses to be have to support the way the rest of the story works. There's no point where everyone turns to Lars and goes, "What's the answer to the mystery?" Because that's not what the character
But Lars is a
for.
comedy sidekick. He's Watson gone full himbo.
I think they even. I think Lars might be
Lars
a they
is not a
them.
he? Oh, my bad.
I don't know. He says frantically opening the character wiki page.
Anyway,
Yeah,
whichever it is,
yeah.
they are a comedy sidekick character, and that is played really well and used really well. I think it's the role Beardsley was born to play, as it were.
And this is a game, this is one of the things that actual play does, that, like, cinema and directed and produced movies and TV shows just can't do, which is this game has two players in it who actively annoyed me, and yet through the play, through the game, everyone else is able to go like, oh no, we're all going to get everyone onto the spot. We're all going to get to the point, and it's all going to work at the end, even after there's this point where these two characters do things that ruin it. Like, it can be unruined. That's a thing you can't do with other types of media normally, because, like, if it got ruined, you don't have the opportunity to unruin it. You shouldn't have let it get ruined. Whereas in this, it's a matter of like, no, we don't have any alternative. We have to go along with what happened. That fiction has been established. We're sticking with it, and then the other players are the ones who pull things together, and it's so very good.
Let's see, I was really impressed with Grant. This is also pretty much the first place I saw him. So I had no idea when he showed up later that his normal mode is like, I am the walking innuendo.
Yeah, he is the filthiest dropout boy.
But in this, he's playing it...
Comparatively.
Playing it straight, as it were.
Yeah.
Like, he carries the Sherlock character very well. He's
Lars and
obviously
Sylvester
having
are
a great
fucking
time.
though, right?
As far as I'm concerned,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
There's like this plot device of the broken relationship between Sylvester and Daisy, and I'm like, I don't really believe that for a minute, frankly.
I believe it entirely. I also think the whole time he was fucking Lars.
I believe that. I will say this is another one where using D&D was a bad plan. Bad plan. Just a bad plan. Like, more so than in any of the others. D&D is not good at mysteries. And the reason you know it's not good at mysteries is because there are only, like, 2 skills that become every skill check that ever gets made.
Yeah.
And this game has almost no combat in it either. There's a little bit, but there is almost none. And it would have been so much better served by a system designed to present that genre.
Yeah. That'll come up again later.
And also, that's part of Raph's big problem as well. He
Yeah.
clearly knows nothing about what his character can do. He's a bard.
Yeah.
he has like bardic inspiration. He has fucking spells.
Yeah.
And he almost never uses it. He is the best equipped character to deal with a mystery out of everyone here, and he spends most of his time just kind of waffling.
Yeah.
And like that's a system failing. Sorry.
Yeah, Raphael got done dirty by the system he was using, and also he, as a player, was confident of something that he didn't know. Like, a vicar is not a Catholic priest.
No,
they are
they're really different.
different.
They're not that different, but they're very different.
And so every time he opened his mouth and was like, "Oh, well, I saw you at confession," like, no, you didn't. You're a vicar. You didn't see anyone at confession.
Like using explicitly Catholic phrases
like,
for a lot. And he crosses himself and stuff.
Yeah, that's just
very
as a
Catholic
tidbit,
shit.
If you do that as a vicar, they kick you out.
I think you get in trouble for that, yeah.
Because that's not what you are.
And it's clearly just that it's an archetype he's not familiar with. And I assume that also he didn't make this character.
Possibly. I also did go through the whole thing. Not a whole thing. I did go through a significant amount of this campaign thinking the joke that Raphael was going to reveal at the end was that the character wasn't a vicar.
Oh, yeah, I thought for sure he was posing, yeah.
And like, along with the
man.
layers of mysteries, this was someone who basically fooled everyone to thinking he was the vicar and had been bullshitting his way for several years at a vicarage. But no, that's not how it works. It was just Raphael didn't quite get what he was working with. And that's frustrating to me specifically because this... Because the thing is, this game is set in like a British location.
Yeah.
Brennan does a pretty good job of trying to carry through with that in a lot of ways. And the players, in some cases, go, well, I can't do British, so I'm going to do European generically, or I'm going to bring in Americans. And they do a really good job with that, recognizing their limits.
Yeah, well, and they are, like, Daisy and Buxter are Americans.
Yeah.
And people talk about them as if they are Americans and ask them questions about weird American shit and whatnot.
Yeah. And Lars is, generically European. Lars is all the different parts of Europe at once.
You think he's some kind of German?
Possibly. If Germany existed at this point, who knows? Anyway.
Also... Sorry, you go first if you like.
I nothing as interesting as what you were going to say.
I was just going to say that it made me feel like a big brain smarty pants because I worked out the flashbulb thing instantly and none of the characters did until the last session.
Yep.
I fucking knew it!
And Buxter's gambit at the very end was so good. I loved it so much.
Fucking good. Yeah.
There is a real thing with actual play where you will watch other player characters do things, and sometimes you'll have this moment of like, I should steal that. And I have had multiple times watching Buxter going, he's stealing my bit. Where Fox has seen me play the bard of a group.
Oh yeah.
And it's definitely the degree of ostentatious bullshit I try.
Look, that's what you're there for. Mm-hmm. Not that he was the bard of that group, apparently.
No, he's a rogue.
I don't know what he was. He's a rogue.
Everyone's rogues.
I think, yeah.
There were so many rogues in that group.
Yeah. Like I said, it's not a good system for this genre.
All right.
And none of that is helped by Rekka's utter commitment to making a gross joke.
Yeah.
As the finale instead of taking it seriously, which is just a bit of a letdown for the whole thing. Also, like, a genuinely good mystery, I thought.
Yeah, like...
very much in genre.
Brennan did a really good job on that.
Not too predictable, but felt comfortably correct for the kind of mystery story that it was.
Alright, now, this is in a strange spot in the timeline, but the Ravening War. Fox hasn't watched this one.
Well, I mean, I didn't watch the prequel.
It's a 6-episode... Well, it is a prequel.
I know, that's
my bad.
The joke.
The Ravening War is a 6-episode prequel to Crown of Candy. It is S tier. It is... Matthew Mercer is the GM. The players are Lou Wilson, Brennan Lee Mulligan, Abria Iyengar, Zakayama, and Anjal Bhimani. And you might go, I don't recognize that last one. Yeah, she's the voice actress for Symmetra from Overwatch.
Oh, yeah.
She's so good. She's the one who's playing, I think in the trailer she describes her character as Jessica Rabbit, but a mango.
Oh, yes, I do remember that.
This game is also split across a time gap, so all the characters have 2 versions of themselves, and one after several years. And just as an example, because I don't want to give away too much if you're going to go watch it, because it's short. It's 6 2-ish hour sessions.
I assume somebody has, like, a loss of innocence plotline going on.
No, they're all What? Actually, kind of. One of the characters is a scoundrel and then finds out through the course of the narrative that he's not as much of a scoundrel as he thought he was, and he feels very guilty about things he did. But specifically, Abria plays... I did, didn't I?
That time you did.
Abria...
That's okay. 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Abria plays a character who starts out as like a late teenager, and she's a chili pepper, and she's green, and then 10 years later she comes back red. Cute. And like there's a lot. It's a tragedy in the Karate Candy universe. It's not for everyone. It is a downer. It's a big old downer.
Hearing that cast though, I'm so bummed out that this is not for me, because I love this cast.
Have you ever wanted to see Lou and Zach playing characters crying at one another as they are angry about not being able to be friends anymore?
We so rarely get to see Brennan play rather than GM as well, and I find him a delight as a player. And Mercer, I've loved everything I've seen him in, so...
Mercer is the thing that holds, for me, Critical Role, like, as a... Like, I would have normally just gone, meh, I'm not interested in this, I'm going to give up on this, and never think about it again. But I still keep going back and like, maybe if I jump in later? Because Mercer is really good at holding a room. He's a very good orator.
And it's not just because he totally has the same hair as you and it's a bit shorter.
I wish I had that hair.
No, you pretty much do.
No, I don't. It's not shaved.
Well, sorry, you've had that hair.
Yeah, because I'm going to be going to the hairdresser at some point around the time this video goes up in December, and going to the hairdresser and saying like, just shave it like this guy.
They're going to go, oh, why didn't you come in before now? And you're going to go, look, a lot of things have happened.
I have issues with haircuts. Anyway, yeah, Ravening War is a physical prop-based Dungeons and Dragons game. The set pieces are amazing. There's a lot of like really excellently made miniatures. Because it's a horror story, the miniatures get really horrifying. It's really great. And for all that I'm putting in the S tier, I want to bitch about it. Because this is a 5th edition game. This is a 5th edition game of characters engaging in political intrigue. This is a 5th edition game where every single character, by the end of the game, has the same 3 spells. Every one of them. One of them is a full caster. Started out as a full caster and then stopped leveling casting because they had those spells and then they just leveled rogue. Everyone winds up with just... I might be misremembering on one of the characters, but I'm pretty sure everyone has the same spells because Silvery Barbs and Message are just too good. Which means at the very end of the fight, you have a sequence where a boss tries to do something and it gets Silvery Barbs 3 times. Which is fine, but, like, it speaks to a weakness of the system when all the players can identify the best thing to do and they're right, and it makes the game slower and more boring. And that, I think, is one of the areas where this being Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition creates an actual problem. Anyway, speaking of Brennan getting to play, hey Fox, Misfits and Magic Season 1!
Yeah, now listen, see, this is why I wanted the D tier to be more accessible, because we've got a real glut going on here. Yeah, Misfits and Magic is great. Abria's a great GM.
Yes, the GM for this one is Abria. The players are Lou Wilson as Whitney Jammer, Erica Ishii as Dream, Danielle Radford as Sam Black, and Brennan Lee Mulligan playing Evan Kelp.
Wow. Gosh. I mean, I don't want to just say Brennan carries this entire thing, because everyone else is great too.
Yeah.
But Evan is such a compelling character, and I'm not just saying that because every second thing that comes out of his mouth sounds like you wrote it. But
for a moment, let me set aside the fact that Evan is squarely in my wheelhouse as the kinds of characters I like to write and make, okay? I think it is worth directing attention and highlighting and spotlighting Whitney Jammer. Because there is so much in Misfits and Magic, the mimetic potential of this whole story, like the things that stick in the head, that are things Whitney says. He's the one who says, I'm gonna say Muggle, and I'm gonna say the whole
word.
word.
The whole Muggle discussion.
Yep, I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say the whole word. I'm gonna say it every time. He's the one who said, "Let's get these things to make us McRibs." He's the one who says, "Eat trash, beat trash." He's the one who says, "Family on 6." Like,
Okay.
again, not to sell any of this, because also Danielle is so good at this, like, distant, I'm being nice, I'm being friendly, and I want you to go away, kind of, holding the conversation in both hands, kind of controlling method as well.
But honestly, I don't love Sam because she seems insincere to me, and the game represents her as being entirely sincere.
Yeah.
And that kind of bugs me.
Well, yeah, that's fair. And of course, like, the character of Dream that they go through, like, as this arc. Like, here's the thing. Evan absolutely could hard carry this whole season. And he doesn't have to.
Yeah.
Because everyone's so good at what they're doing. The fact that, like, Sam Black is, quite, like, the weakest member of the cast for holding the attention or having those mimetic moments or anything like that. And she's still fucking great. She's still so good.
And also, they didn't shoehorn D&D into doing this one because Bria is not particularly fond of D&D.
Yes.
So she picked a much more appropriate system to model this on, and that serves it very fucking well.
Yes, this was a Kids on Brooms style game, I think.
I have only one problem with Misfits and Magic, really, and it is that there are moments when the "we are normies making fun of wizard" nonsense turns into "we are Americans making fun of British."
Yeah.
And that is like a... There's only one group of people in the world who are not allowed to make fun of the Brits, and it's you fuckers. Alright?
I will also...
There is a hierarchy.
I will also offer as another thing about it that I think is a complaint, which is this is a 4-episode season.
Is it?
4!
Shit! I can't believe it's that short! Wow.
It could have been twice as long, and I would have been happy to see everything done more and more depth. I can understand, by the way, if a GM was like, no, I've got 4 sessions worth of material because I don't want to spend too much time in a British boarding school because those suck shit.
I don't think that's this, though, because this did feel kind of truncated. Like, just as they had settled in and found the big twist, it was pretty much over, and nothing got acted upon in the resolution of that. And, in later seasons, shit got acted upon. Holy shit, did it get acted upon.
It absolutely did.
But not at the time, so it did leave the ending feeling a little disappointing.
Alright, so now...
Still really good shit.
Misfits and Magic is really good. You should definitely... Like, it is worth, on its own, the price of admission for Dropout. Like, if you consider the Dropouts, I think it's $15 a month in the United States. That means you're spending $15 for what amounts to 6 feature-length movies.
It's $15 a month here.
I don't know.
Which means it's substantially better value.
I don't know. However, I will also say, you're completely right about everything, all the time, every time. So we're just going to do this. As I realize that the top tiers are about to get very crowded.
Yeah, you've kind of reversed the order of those ones there. It's fine.
No, I didn't. Crown of Candy is better than Tiny Heist. Unsleeping City Season 2 is better than Season 1. And Sophomore Year is not quite as good as Unsleeping City. Well, but just because, like... I think that's probably fairer.
What have you got remaining S tier there?
Pirates of the Leviathan, Mice and Murder, Misfits and Magic.
I think I want to put Escape from the Blood Citadel back in S. Yeah.
Absolutely valid.
I think so. Absolutely
valid. It's just, we're going to need more room above Crown of Candy for the rest of this stuff. Alright then. Next up, we have The Seven.
Oh, that's very good.
Hey Fox, what happens with... what do you reckon the game's going to be like when the cast includes Izzy Rowland?
Oh my god, Izzy's here! I love Izzy.
Game Master is Brennan Lee Mulligan. We have Abria Iyengar playing Antiope Jones, Rekha Shankar playing Katya Cleaver, Becca Scott as Penny Luckstone, Eric Ishii as Danielle Barkstock, Isabella Roland as Ostentatia Wallace, and Persephone Valentine as Sam Nightingale. The very rare example of a player whose name is more ostentatious than their D&D character's name.
Yeah, this is real good shit. This is taking our damsels from the first season of Fantasy High and letting them be fully recognized characters doing cool adventure shit in their own right, and they're great.
Of this cast, like, every character is someone I like, which, you know, if I haven't given it away up till now, I've been always a little bit like, I could give or take that player character for a lot of these campaigns. But no, here, everyone, even Rekka's character.
I was gonna say, be honest, you could give or take Katja, right?
Katja's whole situation with her dad.
And
like, what do you do?
Some pretty cool stuff.
And what do you do with a terrible parent? You excise them. Because of Katja's mum.
Yeah, like it's like she has two terrible parents, but only one of them understands that they are a terrible parent. Mm-hmm. The other one is well-meaning, and the contrast between... Look, Brennan doing parents is always good, I think.
Yeah, he thinks about this a lot.
This is a theme that will come up later again, in fact.
Put it in that.
But yeah, and I do like... One of the best things about Fantasy High and the surrounding games is that we see a lot of bad parents and good parents, and we fully run the spectrum of, no, this person is worth keeping. Well, actually, the spectrum of, this person was right all along, to, this person is flawed, and so are you, and it's worth existing in each other's lives nonetheless, and this person is toxic as shit, and you need to get them out of your life, and it's okay for you to know that.
Yeah.
Like, that spectrum is very important.
Yeah. Genuinely, it's a thing that these campaigns touch on repeatedly. Bad parenting and the choices of parents is a big part of Crown of Candy as well. It is a recurrent theme throughout. The 7, it's 10 episodes. It's not one of the real long haulers, but it's also not one of the short ones, so it's good mid-size. It's a day. It's a full day. Like, it's 24 hours of video. You're going to take a day to watch this one. It doesn't use physical minis. It's using the digital minis.
Yeah. I don't enjoy... Like, I love a good virtual tabletop. I don't love a 3D one. Especially not a 3D one that deliberately looks like handmade miniatures.
Yeah.
Because when you zoom in on handmade miniatures, they don't usually look particularly great.
Yeah. It is a weakness of the form. I'm not to yuck on anyone's yum.
For me, it's the worst of all worlds.
Yeah,
that's not going to be true for everyone. It's fine. It's whatever.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about like the way that props can elevate things comes up later. The thing with these characters as well, like Penny. Like,
God, it's also a really big cast.
Yeah. There's 7 of them, and there's 6 player characters, and there's Zelda, who's effectively a constant player character in PC.
Who I didn't shout out in Fantasy High, but is also a top tier NPC.
Yeah, Zelda is great. Zelda, the fact that Zelda can be ported to a whole second campaign, like, Zelda rules. In this cast of characters, every single one of them could be the main character of a very good series of their own. And I think that speaks to how well all these players are able to lean into the things they want to be doing. No one here is being asked to shoulder a section of the story that they can't handle or don't want to handle. And no one is elbowing their way into a thing that they don't want to be doing.
This is probably why, much like with Lars, this is probably why Katja is not particularly bothersome, because she wants to be making jokes and not much else, but that's all she needs to be called upon to do, so it's fine.
Yeah.
Someone can be the comedy relief.
And yet also, with that, the kinds of things she's called upon to do isn't solving a puzzle or fixing something, it's being emotionally honest. And that has a lot of power to it, and the character delivers on it really well. Like, I think that this is one of the things, like, as a GM, I think this is a great lesson in terms of look for your players' currency. Everyone has something they want to be doing in a game. So don't think, oh, this would be a grand epic moment for someone. Think, what's the moment they want? What's the thing they think would be cool for themselves to do? And then pay off on that rather than on what you assume is like importance in the story.
Which is not, like, always gonna land properly.
No.
One of my problems with this is that Penny's ending is very weird energy.
Penny's ending is so beautifully dark. I love it.
Is it really? I don't know, man.
Penny dies. Penny dies and gets replaced by a Penny from an almost identical universe.
What?
I may have watched an adventuring party, and this might not be actually text to the game.
Are you sure that's what happened there? That's not what I saw happening. I meant the one where she was like, well, God, we are going to spoil this, aren't we? I was thinking of the tension of, do I leave my friends to do this, or do I refuse to do that and just follow what I actually want to do? And no, I'm going to insist on both in the weirdest conceivable way that does not feel narratively workable, but...
There's a similar thing with Danielle at the very end where she's like, doing all what I'm doing is hard and I don't want to do it. Blah. But that's like a punchline to a whole thing. So I don't know how I feel about that. Because I like Danielle so much up to that point.
She's brilliant. I've had consistently with Erica's characters, they go through an arc that I hadn't expected for them, because as far as I was concerned, they were perfect.
They started out perfect.
You didn't need to change.
Well,
and Danielle has this whole moment of like, no, sometimes I'd like to be the pretty girl and I'd like to be the special one and everything. I'm like, well, okay, if you like, but I think you were fucking perfect before.
Yeah. Similar thing with Dream, where the real thing that I thought the point was going to be was like, don't bully people. Like, don't bully people on the internet. That's all you need. Just, like, otherwise you're fine. Just don't bully people. And you're a teenager. You'll get over that. But still, where do we put the 7?
I was also going to say I had a weirdness with... Sorry, I'm talking about this now. Don't stop me. Because I just wanted to add that also, like, people seem to think Sam... People, including Sam's player, seem to think that Sam is kind of a huge bitch. And I just didn't. I thought Sam was really extremely reasonable in almost every moment.
It is an interesting thing, yeah. Because
I think there's like a point where her player turns around and refers to her as being a huge bitch or something like that. Like, and I'm like, wait, what? What were you playing?
There is a point where Persephone apologizes to the other players for being a huge bitch.
Shit, what? Wait,
and,
what?
Like, we both went, what? Where?
That was strange.
There is an inescapable possibility here that this is an issue of a very common trans problem, which is where there is a degree of self-patrolling that trans people are kind of induced to do to prevent preemptively having a problem with other people saying that they're not doing they're not presenting right, they're not behaving right. Like, a hypersensitivity to how you are perceived.
Yeah.
Which, because again, for us, a pair of like grubby working class Australian dorks, like we went, she's fine. Whereas it might well be in that room, other people will be like, there is a tension here and we don't know where this tension is directed. And then the player's like, I have to dissolve this tension to make sure everyone knows it's okay. And the way that I shorthand that is by calling my character a huge bitch. Which, again, weird, but understandable. I wasn't in the room. It's fine. And like, this has Izzy playing Ostentatia Wallace.
It has Abria playing Antiope. She's so good. And, like, once again, don't want to...
If Antiope was in a paper sack all the time, she would still be an incredibly hot and cool character.
Yeah, once again, I want to make it clear I'm not thirsting over a player here. This character is glorious. Doesn't she get, like, party leader tramp stamped on her? Yes! So fucking good.
And my favorite bit there is in, like, the first episode, which you can see for free on YouTube, and you should, because it's really good. But... there's a sequence in the first episode where she walks into her sister's classroom, tells all the other students to leave. They have a heart-to-heart conversation with her sister, and then afterwards, her sister's like, "Did you not notice that you just told everyone to leave, and they fucking did it?" Yeah.
Oh, she's so fucking good. Also, Abria does not have the problem some other players do of not being very familiar with the mechanics and not really knowing how to make her character effective.
Yeah, that character's a beast.
She is a monster.
Yeah.
And I love it.
Yeah. So where do we put the 7?
I mean, it's between S and A. I just don't know which one exactly.
We'll put it at the very top of A.
Yeah, okay, let's put it there for now.
And we might... Because, it's very hard for me to look at the 7 in Pirates of the Leviathan and go, Pirates of the Leviathan... the Pirates of the Leviathan isn't as good as the 7, but also, I get it. This is a hard thing to do, and it's always a bit nebulous.
Also, another better cleric meeting their god moment than Kristen's saga of this.
I love Izzy's character
genuinely
so much.
Touching that scene. I cried a little.
Yeah.
It was very good.
Yeah, Brennan... And big ups there. Brennan had to convey a very particular kind of masculinity and a very particular kind of emotional vulnerability for what was ultimately a bit part character who was going to show up for one scene and then be gone.
Who almost certainly wasn't supposed to be there for that scene, remember? Because it only happens because of a lucky roll.
Yeah.
No one thought that was going to happen.
Yeah, real good stuff. Real good stuff. I'm glad that he has that in his pocket. Yeah. All right. So, next up, we have Shriek Week, which we put into the Didn't Watch camp. Next up, we have Starstruck Odyssey.
Oh. There's not enough S tier.
There's not enough S tier. This is a Star Wars 5th edition game. The Game Master is Brennan Lee Mulligan. The players are Lou Wilson playing Guthrie Miggles Rashbacks, Siobhan Thompson as Reva, Zakiyama as Norman Takamori,
oh my god.
Ali Beardsley as Margaret Encino, Emily Axford as Sundry Sydney, and Brian Murphy as Big Barry 6.
Oh god. Okay,
There's
one hand,
too much S tier.
I can't decide whether this or Mice and Murder is a worse fit for D&D.
It's not D&D. It's Star Wars.
No, it's a version of... It's based on D&D 5th edition as a hack for Star Wars.
Okay, I didn't know.
Which is why it's not very good at doing Star Wars shit.
Hack?
Yeah.
Are you sure it's a hack?
It is my understanding that it's not
official. A comprehensive overhaul of Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition for a Star Wars campaign. Alright, I'm not going to say how close to the bone that is, but this looks like its own distinct product. But... again, not my circus, not my monkeys. Don't know. Don't have to know.
Well, if it is, I don't think they did a fantastic job of it.
Uh-huh.
Because a lot of the stuff in that sounded extremely like house rule hack. So... I'm going to continue working on my existing assumption, and, I don't like the system used for this game.
Uh-huh.
I don't feel like it did a great job of representing a lot of stuff that needed to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But... everything else about this is brilliant.
Yes, this rules.
I love it.
This whole thing rules.
Every character is an incredible space bozo.
3 distinct arcs of narrative, very distinct. Almost the way a dungeon does a good job of structuring. We enter the dungeon, we survive the dungeon, we escape the dungeon. That kind of arc repeatedly used throughout this, with a repeating, growing theme that becomes more and more significant throughout it. Callbacks to the first session in the last session. Just truly excellent stuff all around. And look, this has one of my favorite all-purpose bits of dialogue from anything, which is Zach.
I was going to say, is it the line that has entered our permanent vernacular now?
Yes. Zach abruptly interrupting an NPC to say, "Who here knows you?" Which
Not
is...
meant in a threatening way, but works fantastic.
What a terrifying thing to say.
Good. Yeah, I love everything about Skip. Big Barry 6 might be my favorite character.
Big Barry 6 is a you character.
Dimension yes,
he's exactly. Someone just took a Fox character and gender swapped him.
Barry 6 had tits. We'd be done here.
Yeah. Complete with the big big face hair as well. It's fine.
Margaret is
a big hairy girl.
Astonishing, bizarre departure from the normal for Ali, but they're having a great time, and this character is just so effective so much of the time that it is impossible to have an issue with her.
I really like the way that Margaret teeters between the various different emotional problems she has. Beardsley does a really good job of like this character who is clearly made up of a lot of coping mechanisms and the way that they snap into place as they take action, which means you do get what you get is the same kind of unpredictable, unreliable uncertainty you get from a more emotionally ridiculous character, but you don't get paralysis. Like, Margaret will act. The story will advance. The button will get pushed. The question is, oh no, what follows on from that? And that's where Margaret's unpredictability makes the story more interesting. I really like this character.
Everyone is riding on that energy of... everyone is an instigator in this group. Whatever else is going on, someone will do something to push the situation forward before it has the chance to get boring. Because everyone is playing a bozo, and they know it. And they are well enough equipped to get themselves out of these situations. Even though there is a lot of fucking dying in this. Much like a lot of... not permanent death, otherwise I wouldn't be enjoying them nearly as much. But, we have a lot of player down.
Also, it's a minor thing, but it's really sweet to me that this is Brennan running a game in his mum's fictional universe.
Oh, yeah.
That's so sweet.
Though it does have the slight problem of not only is fantasy America, now space is also America.
Yeah. Again, I don't mind Americans making American media. They couldn't do any better. But yes, it's a really top tier, good season. It is a time investment. It's 13 episodes totaling 40 hours.
I've been raving so much about Barry, I forgot to shout out Skip specific. I love Skip!
Skip is great.
So good.
I also didn't mention who Skip is, so it's just like...
yeah, no, you'll find out who Skip is. Boy, did I not see that coming. I thought the first episode, I was like, oh, wow, that's an unusually serious choice. Are we going to have, a cast full of bozos and one really just dark straight man?
Mm-hmm.
You'll find out.
Yeah,
Siobhan's a lot of fun too. This is not my favorite of her characters, but not because there's anything wrong with the character, just because I love everyone else so fucking much.
This is also a really rare example of where Siobhan gets to have a bit where, the character can always defer to her multi-level marketing scam.
Yeah, I guess
whenever,
so.
Normally Siobhan doesn't do that. Normally her character is very grounded in the space she's in, and she's very attentive to the environment, which is, by the way, one of the things in Crown of Candy that just bodies the player, because she's, in the moment when other characters die, and you watch as the player, who is a good actress and everything else, really lunges into the sad moment, and you're like, I'm watching someone crying as they're playing Dungeons and Dragons, and it hurts. So the fact that Reva...
I get that from a normal game. I don't need Crown of Candy for that.
Yeah, you're fine. You're special. But Reva gets to, whenever anything is happening, she just go, pull that lever. And that's a very different angle. Really good series. I liked it a lot. I don't know what to say.
Starstruck's great. Also another horrifying monster dog.
Yes. It's really weird that it has one of the horniest character designs in any of these games. Even hornier than some of the 7, and yet at the same time, she's not played horny at all. She's obvious. You're
talking about Sundry Sydney?
Yeah, you don't make a sex robot with guns if you don't want a sex robot with guns, but she's incredibly wholesome.
Yeah, you could have made a sexless robot with guns if that had been your intent, but it wasn't.
No. All right, so that's that one. Moving on, we have Coffin Run.
Wow.
Coffin
I feel a bit bad about Coffin Run.
Coffin Run is not going to get the glowing, handy that the other ones got, but that's not because it's bad. It's great. It's just...
yeah, I mean, I wanted to like it more than I did.
So...
But that's not to say that it's bad.
Coffin Run has a... Coffin Run's GM is Jasmine Billar. Its players are Erika Ishii as Mei Wong, Carlos Luna as Wetzel, Zach Ayama as Squing, and Izzy Rowland as Dr. Alexander Astrovsky. This series rules. It's only 6 episodes long. It's a road trip movie that I feel could have done with more road trip.
Yeah.
The execution of the overall plot, given what it was trying to do, not that amazing, not that wild about it, but the actual, the actual campaign rules. It's just so good. I love these characters so much, especially how terrible Squing is. Squing is dreadful.
Absolutely horrid, yes. It's pretty good. I don't think it's an A for me.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is at best a B. It might even be down in the C. Like, if the first season of Fantasy High is a C, this might well be a C for me as well. It's hard for me to get over the bits of it that disappointed me, because, like, we came on so strong.
Yeah.
And there are several characters I really adore.
Mm-hmm.
But then also just like this time I didn't find that Erica's character was particularly exciting to me, whereas normally I love their characters.
Yeah.
And God, who else did we have?
Wetzel should have been hotter.
I liked Wetzel. Well, as far as I'm concerned, Wetzel was very hot.
Okay.
Like, I think that was they sort of waver on how this character is described. Like, it's Frankenstein, but I think it's hot Frankenstein, right? Because original Frankenstein monster, obviously, is hot at last check. Like, that was part of the design brief. But it's more the kind of extreme bottom energy that I enjoy. But also, like, the amount of time that was dedicated to the Dracula letters, and the relationships, his relationship to the various characters, I didn't really enjoy that much, and because so much focus was given to it, it felt like the show often wavered back and forth on whether or not these were actually toxic relationships, or who was in the wrong or who was in the right, and I didn't feel like I had a good through line a lot of the time, so like the emotional continuity for a lot of these characters was broken for me, I guess.
So I would like to now point out just a couple of things about Coffin Run that are excellent, which is not to
it is still excellent.
Not any
it's
way
just
to
one
dissuade.
of the less excellent ones.
Yeah, not in any way to dissuade you, and not trying to argue against your point. First things first, Marina Ostrowski.
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
This series has a hot NPC werewolf. She's amazing. It's great. Jasmine Ballar, the DM, she has such a good grasp of different voice and accent. She has a conversation with herself at one point in a way that is like genuinely fluid and flowing, which I know is always very challenging. And yes, I know actors can all do that. It's such an easy trick to do, but she did it. The point is, she did it, and she did it well. And probably my favorite thing about this is that all the minis and sets are black and white.
Oh yeah, that was super cool.
That's such a cute little detail.
This is also the first one we saw them doing a whole lot of special effects with the physical minis as well.
Yes.
Which makes sense if it comes after Starstruck Odyssey, because that was also on the 3D virtual tabletop. Yep. One of its only weak points, doesn't look that great. But yeah, I feel like this was a real fucking comeback for the physical prop makers. What do we call them? It's the same name as some stupid...
Rick Perry.
That's right.
Yep.
Every time I hear that, I think of the fucking politician who is already irrelevant. But,
yep.
I heard of him enough that his name lives in my brain now. Anyway, so that did absolutely rule. Yeah. I love that about it.
But also, I'm not saying that while moving it. I absolutely agree. The best things in this series are really, really great. I love them so much. But also, I can't quote you a single thing Wetzel said. I can't quote you a single thing that May said. I can't even tell you how this one actually concluded beyond, I think they have to like have a keep away fight with Dracula at one point. And like, that's not in any way a complaint. That's not like, ooh, there's a bad series because X. It's just like, in the terms of some of these things which have left indelible marks on my storytelling techniques, I think that this one isn't that great. Good to move on?
Pretty much, yeah.
Alright. A Court of Fae and Flowers. Speaking of hot characters, Fox.
God, speaking of Brandon being a delight as a player character.
I'm pretty sure this starts in A. We're going to be negotiating whether it goes up into S, right? The cast for this one. Bria Iyengar as the GM. Omar Najam as Prince and Hera. Brennan Lee Mulligan as Captain KP Hobb. Emily Axford as Lady Chirp Featherfowl. Lou Wilson as Lord Squack Aravis. Oscar Montoya as Delosa de la Rue, and Serena Mal as Gwendolyn Thistlehop.
Boy, this is a very good show. Where to start going into this? The prince is so hot. He's so hot. He's so hot, and he's a tortured dark fairy, and he's a complete nerd, and he's extreme bottom energy. I adore this character. And then also, there is a goblin, and like, not like a green-skinned attractive girl who's short. A goblin. A trash-eating, fucking prop-eating. Absolute, just little dirtbag goblin.
The worst thing I can say about this game is that it functionally should have been system agnostic. This could have been a bunch of friends sitting around a table and just passing the conch around.
Actually, yes, I'm absolutely mad that it's in D&D 5th. That's nonsense. It doesn't work for it. It shouldn't have been that.
Yeah, and it has hybridized onto it another system called Good Society, the Jane Austen RPG, and I feel like
it should have just been that.
You should have just used that
100% should have just been that.
Because like the times when Dungeons and Dragons get involved, they're like, oh look, it's the same spell.
It's like a chase scene one time, and otherwise it's just
no. Also, Emily using spell cards because
yes, right.
Emily loves spells,
but it's a very abstract like concept. Like
it's a Dungeons and Dragons.
It's not like it's not the spell, but is the spell being used in a way not intended?
Yeah, it's a Dungeons and Dragons spell, which is like used to measuring time in terms of seconds and momentary dealings with traders who you are going to disappear from after 10 minutes. Whereas this is like much dodgier when you start using it on someone who like going to see every day. It is a system that I have no love for being used to only ever impede a story and characters that I love.
So good. I mean, there is... Well, actually, that's not fair. I was going to say there's no plot here, but there is actually a plot.
Of plot.
It's just hiding under strictly character-motivated stuff, which is the best way to do a plot.
Yeah, it is a raw character drama, and all of the events around what they're doing, because this is Fey bullshit, are about what does the drama feel right. It's so good. It
did have, I felt, the problem of a somewhat emotionally unsatisfying ending, where I'm like, there's, I think, like 2 episodes from the end, I'm like, oh, okay, I see the shape of this. This is that, this goes here, this joins with this. This never mattered in the first place, so we abandon that. We cut it out of our lives. And, like, it didn't quite turn out like that. It's just sort of a trying to, have cake and eat too.
But it is an extremely anime thing, in that the characters are hot, and the ending sucks a little. But yeah,
and I did think our central romance between spoiler and spoiler, the spoiler, was it flip flopped one too many times. Like, I get it, that was the primary will they won't they scenario here, but as someone who has very limited patience for will they won't they, I would have preferred one less oscillation, as it were.
The big plot spoiler about there's a bunch of plot spoilers. I'm not going to talk about them, but
it's very hard to talk about this one.
Yeah, it's challenging. Just know that we were delighted by it. Lou and Emily playing siblings,
so fucking fun,
is really good. And by the way, TTRPG players, pick another player you like and ask them if you can play siblings.
Yeah,
because bickering with someone who you like, the surface level bickering over a secondary layer of deep familial love is really fun to play around with, and these two do such a good job with it.
This is a good dynamic, and if you have ever had a sibling or a close friend of your own, you already know how to do it.
Yeah. All right, so there you go. It's a solid A, but it's a 5th edition D&D game when it doesn't need to be.
That's really the only thing that's bad about it. Also, doesn't use any miniatures grid combat stuff, so they came up with other things for the physical prop design crew to do, and they knock it out of the park as always.
Absolutely smashed it. Next
There's
up,
some good shit there.
Neverafter. the horror campaign. Woo!
Oh, yeah.
Neverafter's GM is Brennan Lee Mulligan, and the characters are Siobhan Thompson playing Princess Rosamund Dupree, Ali Beardsley playing Mother Timothy Goost, Lou Wilson playing Pinocchio, Zach Ayama playing Puss in Boots, Brian Murphy playing Prince Gerald of Greenlee, and Emily Axford playing Ylfa Snorkelson. Just gonna gently slide this into the C tier.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think this one's also a C for me. Once again, there's nothing really wrong with it. And the parts of that I don't like are probably entirely due to the things that you would like about it, specifically if you liked it. Like, I don't like the dark fairy tale bit. I don't like horror stuff.
Yeah.
I don't like the intended, like, death loop kind of concept. None of this appeals to me particularly.
And of course, the type of game system it is doesn't in my mind serve horror that well.
Oh yeah, also it's another one where 5th edition is a bad choice of a system. D&D is very bad at horror games.
I disagree.
You've written articles about this.
Well, that's the thing. I disagree that it's bad at it. I think that the way that D&D is used here isn't good at it. It doesn't highlight any of the ways it can be good.
So, I think D&D is bad at horror games because, like, specifically there is an expected balance of power in favor of the player characters. And adjusting that is much more difficult than it seems at first glance. Like, you can't just move numbers around to make it harder and have that have the same effect as creating what you want, the tension that you want from an actual horror game.
Yeah, so just right there, that in my mind, like the fact that you look to the numbers and the numbers like that in terms of difficulty of combat is one of the things. Like, I don't think that that's the right way to think about horror in D&D. But again, this isn't the position for me to go like, here's how I would do this.
But basically, it's a system where you're meant to become a battle god, and that doesn't square well with horror.
Sort of, yeah. Like again, different conversation, different places. I will say. One thing I have written about a lot is the way that when Dungeons & Dragons writers have tried to do horror, they have in many cases completely bottled it.
Oh yeah, Dungeons & Dragons design for horror is usually even worse.
Yeah.
It's horror in the way that, like, Full Metal Alchemist has horror elements. Like, there's some horrifying stuff, but it's not a horror story. And I have heard it called horror and gone, really though? I don't feel that's accurate.
Once again, prototype theory. I would absolutely be content if someone referred to that as horror, but also I think I engage with a lot more horror and a lot more varieties of horror than you do. And in your case, I think there's going to be an element where you think, I don't give a crap about horror. So when you say something I really like is horror, that creates a dissonance, not because you're wrong, but just because, like, I can't see it. Right?
Well, I don't think it's that. I think it's like because it's hearing people who really like horror talk about what they like about it. And those particular things that fail to connect it with me. I don't find...
It's fine.
This isn't the conversation for now.
No, it's fine.
Like, I could talk about how horror doesn't connect with me because I don't scare as such, but I am upset by things, and it, like...
Yeah.
There's a whole conversation here, but it would take a long time, so it doesn't go here.
And it's not relevant to what we're talking about, really. The point is...
Suffice to say, I don't like dark and gritty fairy tale, and I still watch this all the way through, so that surely speaks in its favour.
I think the strongest thing I would say about this series, specifically Neverafter, is that there is a lot of good, high concept in exploration of the kinds of things in dark fairy tale. The Jack the Giant Killer, the Baron of Bricks, and the Jack Be Nimble. Those are being different things. I think that's all a really good hook. The idea of the wicked stepmother trying to escape her story, and the idea of princesses rebelling against the idea of being trapped in a story, those are all really cool ideas.
I was extremely disappointed by the direction the princess's plot took, though.
Yeah, and therein you wind up with the other thing, which is because this has to be protagonist-centered and culminate in a big battle at the very end, and also needs a big bad monster, it wound up being in many ways unsatisfying to me, which is a shame.
Also sort of an enjoyment of the symmetry of the group when you start to realize that it features these, like, archetypes that they put forward as being essential parts of fairy tale narrative. Like, there's always a witch, there's always a fairy, there's always a wolf, these kind of idea god spaces kind of thing. And it was cool to sort of see that developing in the party, but then nothing really happened with it, so it was also like, oh, was I putting that there myself? I thought it was cool, I would have worked with it, but... And, yeah, there is the central conceit that's exterior to the story, which is kind of spoilery to talk about, which I also just... as a concept, doesn't appeal to me very much.
And by the way, because at least so far, I don't want to like insult the stuff in our D tier, so I've just subtly changed it from Drek and didn't watch to just didn't watch. But hold on, things might change.
It's just D.
Yeah, the D tier, however, is where we put Dungeons and Drag Queens.
Oh yeah, we have not watched that.
Haven't been interested.
I think drag queens are great, and they should get to do whatever they fucking want. And
including a couple of murders.
Deeply persecuted by stupid people. But also, I'm really not into camp, which is a huge problem.
Not my thing. Happen over there. All good. I love and support you at a distance.
Yeah.
Then we have Mentopolis.
Oh, that's got to be S tier, right?
Uh-huh.
It's so good.
Mentopolis is Kids on Bikes game run by Brennan Lee Mulligan.
Not D&D. Not D&D.
Where the player characters are Alex Songjia playing Conrad Schintz, Daniel Radford playing Anastasia Tension, Mike Trapp playing Hunch Curio, Siobhan Thompson playing Imelda Pulse, Freddie Wong as Dad Fucks.
Oh God, I don't forget about Dad Fucks.
We watched the trailer, admittedly, 2 hours ago, but we watched the trailer and you forgot about Dan
It's like
Fucks.
It surprises me every time.
And then you have Hank Green, yes, that Hank Green, playing The Fix.
I fucking love this. It's so clever as an imagining of a, mind palace functioning as a city style of thing.
Bonus dog content. Hey, Ellie.
Everyone's having a great fucking time. Everyone is both hyper competent and a giant bozo.
The props.
Oh yeah, it's another one when we're not using a combat board, so the props department had to do something, so they built a fucking pinball machine to deal out tokens to the... it's amazing. I loved seeing that thing go every time.
And there comes a point where something about the whole prop situation changes.
Oh yeah.
And I was watching Fox when it happened, and I watched as her expression became that of a delighted little beast child observing a mousetrap working for the first time.
It's very good.
Mousetrap, the board game, not Mousetrap, an actual mousetrap.
No,
they're not interesting to look at.
Yuck, ugh.
They just go snap. It's fine.
Those aren't delightful.
No.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I was always going to have a soft spot for this, I think, because I like that. One of my favorite things in games is to see how something works and then realize what it is and go, oh!
Yeah.
And this is just full of that the whole fucking time.
It's funny because it is punny. Like, it's a lot of puns, but they're all wielded together very well. And it effectively, this is Inside Out, the Pixar movie, but as a noir thriller.
Yes. Yeah.
It has some dialogue that, again, has just become enduring in-jokes.
Oh, God, yeah. Stacy fake name is just a...
Case closed.
It's a phrase we use now.
We do indeed use it. We use the NPC name of Stacy fake name a lot.
Good shit.
The la-di-da, stand by the window. Attaching multiple stakes to a character to try and heal them faster.
Also, I mean, I don't know why I'm picking one character. Everyone is a delight, but the fix is
something that speaks very deeply and primally to you.
As someone who is, lightly obsessive about Only the things of value that deserve to be obsessed over.
Your fix in your head has splint guards because of the RSI.
Got programming in one hand and Pokemon in the other. Out of my fucking way.
Yeah, the whole aesthetic of this game is excellently deployed. I think this is easily one of the best campaigns, like high concept wise, and delivered in all the different ways. This is one of the rare opportunities for them to do good cinematography as well. Well, like the actual lighting of the dome is very deliberately crisp and Dutch angles.
I'm also very pleased to see Mike Trapp here as a player again. He's so fun.
Trap is
very much the Beej of Dropout.
Yeah, Trap is very much a secret source kind of thing, in that like if Trap's involved in a project, like you should check it out. Like even if he's not the star, you should check it out. He tends to show up in really good things.
But also, we've never seen. Wait, what's the name of the player of Danny Fox player? Because we haven't seen him in anything
Freddie
else.
Wong,
but he is a show stealer.
Dan Fox.
Yeah.
He's from the Dungeons and Daddies podcast.
Let's see. Just for reference, what kind of daddies?
Like parents, actual parents. It's a story of it's a story of parents rescuing their kids from a fantasy adventure.
Gotcha.
Wholesome
type.
If you've ever heard the phrase "rocket jump" in the context of internet content,
only the kind of internet content that features
rocket jumping.
Quake.
He's the founder of the Rocket Jump production company.
Oh, it's a name or something. Okay, yeah, cool.
Yeah. It is named after the thing in Quake, because that's how long Rocket Jump's been around.
This is also the first time we've seen Alex, but we see them in at least one other Dimension 20s.
Alex playing Conrad is very interesting because like they joked about Conrad being just too small. Like the whole point is like Conrad is too small, and
then the next character
they as a actual player have a very small physical profile, which means that it has this side effect of like, I'm not trying to make fun, but it's like you did a good job of making Conrad seem tiny.
Conrad is the closest thing to something that gets on my nerves from this series, I think, just because I don't know, it's very difficult to make a character with that job in the story and being like the emotional weight of everything. Like their job is essentially to make other characters feel bad when they do awful shit.
Yeah.
And it's very tricky to carry that without seeming, emotionally manipulative. So there are times when I find Conrad is a little bit like, oh, stop feeling sorry for yourself so performatively, child.
Yeah. And indeed, they make a joke in the very first appearance that these two characters are performatively very sad.
But also Danny is there to directly say that to this child.
Conrad, you little shit!
Kind of works, yeah. Like, it never got to the point where I am actively angry at this character now, so...
Still, such an excellent cast, such an excellent... And like, we're avoiding talking about the story, because it's a mystery!
Yeah.
And it does a good job of being an interesting mystery!
And even just, like, things that aren't really... Things that the mystery very much does not hinge upon, but are still delightful when you experience them for the first time. So I wouldn't want to ruin that for anyone.
Yeah. Sorry, there's various things in that I'm not going to mention just because, like, again, they don't make sense until you've watched the series, but it's really good.
I even feel slightly bad about reading out the character names before they're introduced.
Because Hutch Curio and Danny Fox are both, like, really good self-deliveries.
Hunch Curio is just pitch-perfect fucking name for this character. It's, this is tropiness wielded in the most effective way possible. And that's something that TTRPGs are really good for, I think. But I also think that most TTRPGs that try to systemize that as, like, the thing that they do, where they're like, okay, we want to make this trope, so we're going to call this ability this trope, and it does this trope. Like, that's very awkward and inelegant. But this is a system wielded in this way with this kind of skill is the way to do it right, I think.
Next up, we have a return to 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons with Burrow's End.
Speaking of things that shouldn't have been 5th edition.
There are too many S-tier games.
I almost want to bump this down to A tier just because of the number of times that I yelled at my screen. Imagine if you just measured the fucking distances in squares. A beautiful technology that was gifted to us in 4th edition, and 5th edition threw right out the fucking window.
I am
inclined...
Works
so much better!
I'm inclined to have it as being a S, but I will understand. But we'll talk more about that in a moment. This is an Abria Ironguard joint with Brennan Lee Mulligan playing Tula, a distressed mum. Siobhan Thompson playing Jason, one of the kids. Rashawn Nadine Scott as Viola, the sister of that distressed mum. Jasper William Cartwright as Thorn Vale, a cult leader? Paladin.
Viola's husband and a cult leader.
Erika Ishii, the grandma of those kids. And Izzy Rowland as Lila, the other kid.
Yeah, God. Just going through that list makes me feel bad about wanting it in A tier. It's really on the border. The characters are so fucking good in this game.
And by the way, good in a very intense way. This is a tragedy, horror, hopeful story in the mold of its main inspirations, The Secret of Nim and Watership Down. This story is a lot of bummers that wind up at a good place, but it has undeniably got some bummers in it.
Yeah, it was not as much of a downer as I thought it was going to be. Like, I was scared we might be going full Watership Down here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. What, like 3 of the main characters live to the end?
Well, yeah. But, like, I mean, it's not even as dark as Farthing Wood, really.
Fair enough. It does start with a lot of dead animals.
Yeah, but then the characters become combat gods because it's D&D, and no, this is not entirely true.
No.
But there's a lot more implied threat than actual bad experience after a certain point.
There is a lot of body horror. There is a lot of
That's
disquieting relationships to bodies and disquieting relationships to being a predator. There is a lot of stuff in here that has these moments. Like you, as a person who's been role-playing being a stoat since you were 7, I have no doubt you're fine with it. But there are definitely people who are like, oh yeah, the rabbit I'm eating might be sentient, and I just have to make sure I don't think about that.
I'm actually very deeply not okay with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And the fact that this story goes there is deliberately uncomfortable.
But they do also draw a line where, like, that it's vaguely addressed, but it is a situation where some animals are people and some animals are not.
But also they make a point that that's a social thing. Like, we're declaring it. We can't be sure.
It's not entirely, though. Like, some of the animals they interact with are clearly animals.
Yes.
And some of them are clearly people animals who are also just bad guys.
Yeah.
Like, who are actively trying to kill them, which is another thing entirely. And also, some of the more gruesome there's a couple of sets in this one that are...
Oh my god, Rick Perry, you fucking genius, you monster, you brilliant, awful artist. Because this is the thing that I wanted to highlight.
That's where most of the body horror lives, for sure.
And this is why I wanted to put this in the S tier. But I understand not putting it there, because materiality, props, and production elements in Burrow's End are off the charts.
Yeah.
The shadow puppets they use for storytelling sequences. Like when a character tells a story, you will get shadow puppets on the dome around them about that. But also the propaganda posters. Like when a character from one of the factions is introduced, they will get a poster, which is a completely different style to the shadow puppetry of the other characters. Visually,
and the main characters who just get, cute cartoon portraits.
Lovely pastoral kind of like cartoon animal drawings. And then you have the shadow puppets to represent like a dark history. And then you have the propaganda posters to represent another faction. Like all of these are really lovely, different, stylistically representative things. There's so much work being done. The physical props for, amongst other things, puzzles are great. And I'm just circling around the bear here. I'm just not talking about the bear directly.
Look, everybody's gonna know it's the bear when they see it.
Yeah. The second episode comes with a content warning for a set piece that is a gory bear. And, like, take the content warning seriously. If you think it'll upset you, give the episode a skip. Don't worry about it.
No, it's a reason they put fucking content warnings on these shows, which, by the way, full props. Like, good, thank you, wonderful. I needed to know. I avoided this show for a long time because I thought it... I'm not keen on animal death, and I thought at first that I would not be able to do this show. But in the end, I went for it, and it wasn't more than I could cope with, so I'm glad. But yeah, we talked a lot about props and not nearly enough about how fucking good all these characters are.
Amazing characters.
More than one scene where players are just weeping at the table.
Yep.
Real fucking good.
Lots of... A detail that's, like, not textual is that 3 of the people in the game are expecting kids.
Yeah.
While the
It's
story...
an interesting thing to find out later, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, you're all full of emotions about parenting and being a kid and doing the best by your parents and doing the best by your kids, and one of you is dealing with an aging parent as well. Oh, Nelly! Yeah, there's a lot of, like, really raw, very real emotional reactions to things. These are people who have clearly thought a lot about how parenting gets represented in this kind of story.
Izzy and Sean just being top tier little shits.
Oh, they're such good kids.
Very good kid bickering. Very good, like, you know, I have the attention span of someone who doesn't care about attention spans.
Brennan jokes in the first episode that he's been trying to get PvP to happen in a campaign for 6 years.
In the opening 5 seconds.
And the opening 5 seconds, Siobhan and Izzy start taking attack rolls on each other. It's great.
Yeah, what was it we said before about siblings? That's good shit.
Yeah.
And Brennan, once again, knocking it out of the park.
There's 2 sets of siblings. Because you have...
Oh, yeah, the sisters.
Tulsa and Ava are both sisters, and their parent... And Tulsa is a mother to the siblings as well. It's not Tulsa, it's...
Yeah, I don't know that name.
Yeah.
I can't remember. Eric is... Yeah. I mean, everyone is a family in this.
Yeah. With, Jasper's character Thorn being the, like, married in.
No, he's married in, but he's still family.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There's not to discredit him or diminish him in any way. It's just like there is a lot of thought about different relationships and what cohesion and family means. And as we know, we say family on 6.
And grandma with new son-in-law is always a fun dynamic to see in this kind of thing as well. Like everything is a delight.
Yeah.
And Brennan, once again, knocking it out of the park with the, like, I am playing the most sensible character here who will also murder the absolute shit out of you if I genuinely believe you are going to hurt something I love.
Brennan also, like, very nakedly likes playing with the weaknesses of a character. So, like, when discussing why she does badly at certain roles or what she fails at, he actually is like, oh, here's the thing. Like, I want to make sure you understand this is how this represents and how this works, which I think is a really good job. I think it's a thing that game systems will give you a tool to do. All right, here we go. Next up, we have a Dimension 20 Fantasy High Junior Year, which is a Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition game run by Brennan Lee Mulligan, featuring Emily Axford as Fig Faith, Zach Yama as Gorgug Thistlespring, Siobhan Thompson as Adian Abernan, Lou Wilson as Fabian Seacaster, Ali Beardsley as Kristen Applebees, and Brian Murphy as Riz Gukdak.
And a bunch of other stuff.
And a bunch of other stuff.
And a bunch of other stuff. Yeah, did we say D is only for didn't watch? Or
well, no, there's a reason I've renamed it to just D.
Yeah, like, this has to meaningfully go below the first season of Fantasy High. Like, I'm sure there are some people who love this and their favorites are back and they're very excited to see them do another year of American stuff. I mean, school stuff.
This turned me off the entire Fantasy High franchise. I don't want to see another season of this.
Yeah.
I actively think that they have, in this season, rendered the characters irredeemable to me.
They just sort of... I guess they're flanderized to a large degree, and, like,
Possibly.
watching the world deform around them this time, even though they're not... when they were the underdogs, that's what you wanted to see. But they're not underdogs anymore.
No.
They are...
immensely privileged, connected to the most powerful people in the world, in many cases beloved by extremely important people who will do anything for them, and they treat modest inconvenience and high school unpopularity as being dire and important. They're nakedly racist to a stranger.
Yeah, that's some bullshit.
Kristen's plot repeats itself for a third time, and the lesson is not learned and not improved
I'm
upon.
deeply not okay with Kristen in this season. The
whole British Kristen thing.
Oh
yeah, spoilers for this whole season.
Yeah, what did I say? There's only one group of people who are not allowed to make fun of the Brits.
Yeah, but spoilers for this season. This season sucks,
yeah.
and it sucks more the longer it goes on. There's an NPC introduced by Brennan to try and address a thing a player does that is bad for the story and is a genuine bad behavior on the character's part diegetically, and also bad player behavior in that it demands attention and change and work from the GM that's exclusively for them and then is meant to be dropped, that gives the character freedom and license to do a lot of things which they don't have any reason to be allowed to do. And then the story bends itself around making it like, oh, isn't it stupid to try and rein in that character from doing the actively hostile thing that they shouldn't be fucking doing?
Let's see. Okay. What do we like about this season? We like Maisie. Maisie is great. The Minotaur.
Yeah, Maisie's great. The brief hot minute where it looked like Maisie was going to be part of a 3 different person dynamic. But then, in the finale, the way they talk about and act around Maisie is fucking disgusting.
Yeah, that's kind of gross.
And makes me think, oh no,
I regret this.
Fabian is just an incel with enough money to not be an incel. Like, he is awful about women based on how he treats the women he thinks he likes. Which sucks, because Maisie is adorable. She's great.
Oh, we like Aylwin. We like Aylwin becoming a cat lady.
Yep.
And that was great. I loved her. Everything about her was great.
Yep. You might notice we have now mentioned 2 different NPC things.
Which doesn't bode well, because the third thing I was going to say is Ada, who doesn't get to be in this season because she's busy being the most amazing girlfriend ever.
To someone who sucks.
To someone who's... Yeah. It feels very mean-spirited to complain about them, but, like, I am truly sick of Fig at this point.
And like, Fig steps out of the story at this point. She has mentioned she's probably not coming back for another season, which is good, but she shouldn't have come back for this one.
No.
Because, like, one of the things, right, in the previous season that Ada talks about with Adine, that's a big deal, is as a person, she values honesty immensely. And then she falls for Fig, who is a compulsive liar, who, like, at the end of that previous season, you can be like, oh, this will change Fig. And then you find the new season, not only is she not changed, she's worse.
Substantially worse. They gaslight a character who is in love with one of them.
Yep.
And just, it's a joke.
Yep.
Like, and Fig in particular is this, no, I'm a rebel, rock music and teenage rebellion, and, like...
She's a Metallica t-shirt. She's like, oh, I'm edgy. No, you're not. You're mainstream. You are the most mainstream. You have 4 different levels of immense privilege all heaped up on you. Your dads include a demon lord and the assistant principal. Shut the fuck up.
See, here's the thing. He's not a demon lord, is he?
No.
He's a devil. She's explicitly a high-ranking member of a lawful evil authority.
Yep.
And you hear, like...
She uses slave labor to make an album.
Her dad, who is a great character, talks about how this shit works in Brennan's world. And it's an interesting interpretation of, like, devils are lawful because they are part of this hierarchy designed to test and evaluate mortal morality. And, like, that's all cool and stuff, but it is deeply cop shit.
Yeah.
And Fig is part of that. Proudly, and acts like that itself is part of a rebellion, and it's just nonsense.
She's a cop.
It's so annoying.
She's a cop who is affronted by the idea of ever having to respect anyone else. She is deeply, deeply annoying.
I also am really upset by how they treat the, apparently they were villains after all, group of fellow students.
Mm-hmm.
like, who they instantly decide are, like, kill them levels of bad.
Yeah.
For, from just teenage levels of cattiness between them?
Yeah, Kipper Lily Copperkettle walks into a room and doesn't act like she likes them out of nowhere, so they start making fun of her name, which is just naked racism, right? Like going, haha, halfling names are dumb. That's fucking racist.
And it'd be fine to just kind of hate each other in that catty, low-key way. That's not a big deal. But they decide that these characters are villains before they are ever actually villainous. And at no point do they stop and go, and like us, they are children.
Yeah. And like, the ways that we go off and kill people. Like, there's also a whole, like, paradigm of their evil actions, which is they go out and they work very hard and they do lots and lots and lots of work, taking advantage of flaws in the system.
They do low-risk work for high reward.
Yeah, and they do a lot of it. With the rat grinders.
Yeah, that's bad of them.
We do not endanger ourselves, but instead we just make do by doing more work. And that's bad, as opposed to our heroes, who have very rarely been at actual risk, because one of them has a devil lord as her fucking dad who bails her out, and one of the most powerful wizards in reality to bail her out. And the whole... Oh, one of them is the son of the best pirate of all history, who is a demon lord, who will bail him out. And the whole thing is this odious kind of, well, we're the protagonists, so we win. And that makes all of them look worse, because they're all friends with Kristen, who has killed 3 gods by being a selfish prick.
And one of them didn't even deserve it.
Yeah. Fig, who gaslights multiple people and seduces adults, which, that's fucked.
Like I said, I've been trying not to rag on players, but there's a point towards the end where Emily seems genuinely upset that Fig's gaslighting of one of these characters doesn't work as a final ploy to, like, oh no, save me from these friends. And Brennan fully is like, he just saw you. Like, he knows you can transform, and you just ran in as this character and asked him to not help his friends who are all being killed by your friends. And, like, he has a crush on this alternate identity. He's not mind control.
Yeah, and therein you have the other thing of, like, well, why can't I get away with it? Yeah. And, like, on one level, there's a thing Brennan says a lot around Emily's stuff, which is, I've got to respect the hustle. And the thing is, all right, yeah, I get that. You want to encourage players to try things. But in her case, in this season especially, what is she trying? All she is trying to do is divert attention away from things. She's not talking, as far as we know, to the DM saying, like, here's a plan I've got, can we make this happen, and then executing on it. She's not doing anything that isn't just, hey everyone, I'm going to take the attention, I'm going to focus it, and I'm going to try and force the plot to follow something that I want it to, because I think I have a funnier idea than whatever the materialities of the narrative are doing. And I find that deeply frustrating.
Have we addressed the point where they find out that the enemy children they have discovered are, like, clearly to some degree mind controlled?
Yeah.
And they still just treat them as unambiguous bad guys not worthy of sympathy?
No.
That's real fucked up.
Yeah.
Everyone is way too committed to the bit this season. Nobody is... Okay, I still like Riz.
Yeah, but the thing is, here's the problem. Riz is willing to be friends with Faith and Kristen and Fabian. Which is to say, if you're a dude and your best friend talks about women the way Fabian talks about it, talk to your fucking boys.
Not okay. Yeah. It's
awful.
Not a good season. And also the day-to-day play of this is... on one hand, Brennan introduces a system to cover for something that D&D doesn't do well in this scenario.
Which, by the way, I liked all of this, like, where are you spending your effort,
like life sim kind of stuff. That was like a really interesting subsystem, but it did mean that a lot of time was dedicated to boring American school shit. And the insanity of that system where it's like, oh, you might not be able to get into university unless you do all this extra bullshit that you can't reasonably accommodate in your life, because nobody could, because it's fucking nonsense. Like, just doing your school and doing well enough at it isn't enough to even just guarantee you a position at a university? What the fuck, man?
Also, further wonking this up, a bunch of these students are spellcasters.
A bunch of these students are spellcasters, yes.
So you finish high school with the ability to magically summon food.
Also, I have
Congratulations! Higher education is meaningless.
I have a huge issue with the premise of, like, there is barbarian class because there is a right way to be a barbarian. Fuck you!
Yeah, that's dumb as hell.
Fuck you, man!
Yep.
The way you win at that class should be to just go, I'm not doing that shit. It's very frustrating, and just on top of everything else, it's just a whole lot of not fun in this season. There are a few bright moments, but overall, we were glad to be done with this
And
one.
then there's British Kristen. Which is to say...
Oh, wait, we forgot the part about Trapper.
Oh,
We forgot Trapper's whole thing where she's, like, being... her whole sincere revival and attempt to salvage the reputation of a goddess who really needed her to, like, step up and be an advocate for her in a way that, you know, maybe Kristen was supposed to do for her fucking god this time.
With
or the
Trapper.
one after that. Or
like,
the one before
the way that they
whatever.
Like, her. You at the end of the previous season, Kristen had like given identity to a mystery goddess who was shaped out of stars, and she was dating a werewolf who worshipped a moon god. It's like, oh, so this is the thing you two do together, right? No,
They were even like sister goddesses, basically.
yes, but no. And Trapper, what Trapper was doing, you see, is bad because she was doing it with that bitch.
Yeah, she was just, like, being a fool about it and not realizing that people were just taking advantage of her to make themselves look good. And,
Yeah.
like, somehow this was presented as a, you know, well, it's reasonable, but also really Trapper's making a mistake here. You know, they didn't get back together, which was nice, but she did break up with that bitch.
Yeah, well, they practically did. They very strongly hint at the end that, like, Trapper's coming back. Remember? Like, Kristen's like, oh, I gotta go prepare for a party because Trapper's coming back.
I did not get the impression they were getting back together, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did,
because this is a protagonist-centered... vile space. I hate it.
Kristen in particular cannot suffer consequences.
Yeah, no, Kristen, like, British Kristen is like a hallmark of what Beardsley does in this, which is to say, any time where there is a potential to, like, bear the story and, like, recognize the materialities of the world you're in, you explicitly have to do something to ignore and violate that and punish the people observing for trying to ask you to do that. And that's the thing of, like, you know, player currency, give players what they want. Beardsley quite clearly does not want Kristen to be a serious character who cares about divinity, who is related to a serious moment. The character is there to be funny and the bit, and to joke around, possibly about being drunk and stupid. Like, that's what Kristen is. And all the potential she had is fucking nothing.
Oh, I forgot to bitch about the messiness of 5th Ed multiclassing and how that factors into the stupid class system. And
yeah, I didn't even blink at that because, like, it just washed.
I'm not saying 5th Ed's class system is stupid, but the nature of multiclassing and people power gaming in this game leads to, like, nonsense like Fig being like, well, I'm bored with being a bard and a warlock and whatever else I am now, and I've decided I should be a paladin, but for Kristen's god, because, like, I think she would like me based off of vibes or something, even though Kristen has killed her at this point. She may or may not exist anymore, but also, like, I'm not committing to her in a way that follows what this goddess has presented, but just kind of what my vibes want that goddess to become. It's a bad scene.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've seen all of these people do more or less these same beats in different ways that worked. Like, Brandon's not bad at this, Emily's not bad at this, Beardsley's not bad at this, but somehow this particular alchemy is just garbage.
Yeah. There is an attitude towards deity and faith in this, which is somehow, faith is, like, inherently valuable enough that you should actually engage with it, and then the equally ridiculous position that faith is like a fucking attendance ticket. Like, I'm going to be a paladin of this thing without knowing anything about them, without knowing their ideals.
Signing up for paladinness.
Yeah, it's really it diminishes the world it's in, and like I said, it made me sour on this whole cast of characters. Even the one I like. Well, ones I think Gorgag is cool. I think he's a fine job. I don't like the fact that Brennan had to effectively, like, I'm just going to rebuild your character for you so you can actually do the things you want this character to actually do. Which is where he got, like, 6 points of intelligence from.
Gorgug, Riz, Adain, all fine. I like them. I liked Fabian for the most part, but he
then right
went
at the end,
strongly downhill in this season
dunked it into the toilet. Like even if you are having complicated feelings about a crush and a counter crush, you don't brag about how you're going to fuck someone who has not signed up to fuck you on a blanket made of another girl's skin.
Yeah, no,
that is fucked up.
That's fucked up and gross.
Yeah. And it's
all children.
Yep. It's terrible. It's a terrible season. Watch the first two, skip the third,
and skip this.
pretend that there's not going to be a fourth. Because if there is a fourth, it will probably not be better. Because it can't fix this. It cannot fix this because the entire universe is bent around giving these characters what they want, and they
best it could do is
pretend
this didn't really happen.
Yeah, the gas leak year, as it were.
Yeah. Oh, that'd work. Yeah. That was an evil nightmare created by a fiendish psychic entity that we opened season 4 by killing. Mm-hmm. Thank goodness none of that happened. I wonder if Maisie exists in real life. Gosh, I'd never speak to her like that.
Yeah, though also the opening of that session with a whole bunch of random NPC characters who are meant to be from the adventure that you're all just tuning into, that was a fun bit. I thought
the
that was
opening
a good joke.
was very funny. It should have gone for like 20 minutes tops.
Yeah, not a whole session.
Not a whole session.
All right then. So, out of the way.
Yeah. God, that was a lot of bitching. Sorry about that. Back to Decemberween funsies.
Never stop blowing up.
Oh, this is so good. That's probably fair.
Top of the ranks. Top of the ranks.
I don't know if it's my actual favorite, but if it's not, then it's got to be close.
This is Brennan Lee Mulligan running a system called Never Stop Blowing Up, which is very much reskinned Kids on Bikes.
Kids on Bombs.
Kids on Bombs. And the player characters are Isabella Rowland is Paula Donaldson as Jack Manhattan, Alex Songjia as Liv Schuyler as Cakeskin, Jacob Wysocki as Andy Dang Lightfoot as Greg Stocks, Ify Nwadiwe as Wendell Morris as Vic Ethanol, Ali Beardsley as Russell Fields as Jennifer Drips, and Rekha Shankar as Usha Rao as G13. This is unhinged, and it's great, and I love it.
Remember what I said about tropiness being wielded correctly?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is... God, do we just introduce it and imagine that it speaks for itself?
Okay.
Okay. Every one of these people plays such good characters. And then some genius came up with the idea of what if they were all, in fact, 2 characters. And they all ruled!
There is a really interesting, deeper layer of narrative in this particular series where you have characters playing characters. So there is a degree to which there is a self-reflection, and this plays into one of my favorite things about superheroes, where a superhero is someone who invents an identity because it's what makes sense to them. So Batman, to use an example, Batman is a spooky guy, and therefore, how does Bruce Wayne imagine a spooky guy looks? He looks like a big bat, and he comes out of nowhere and he beats you up. He doesn't like show up with knives and razors, and like it's not Pinhead. It's a different kind of spooky
slasher
guy. Yeah, and that's what Bruce Wayne thinks of as a spooky guy that he can be. In this, you have characters thrust into identities and then having to grapple with what I think about what I'm doing to be the person I am being perceived as. And the premise is a bunch of people in a video store that's about to be shut down have someone bring back a cursed, enchanted, magical, whatever VHS tape that's been on rental since the 80s, and a magical accident happens and they all wind up stuck in this movie called Never Stop Blowing Up. And that movie is the thing that they then have to play through in a ridiculous way to get out. They get to have fun, they get to have this orientation period, and then they get to discover what it means to get out. And it's this wonderful story that at its heart is about what we value in a story, who we choose to care about, what it means to give up on parts of your own life and what it takes to grow, and when you are able to stop doing that and know that you've done enough. And it does all this through the medium of a story in which at one point someone punches a vampire president in the face so hard his head explodes.
It's... God, it's hard to know where to start with this. It's so joyful.
Height of their powers. This is the Final Fantasy VI of Dimension 20. We are as good as we can be at this thing. We know what we're doing. We have a group of people who we will not get together like this again for a while because, Izzy Rowland was pregnant during this, and I believe she's not pregnant anymore. So I'm gonna have a wild guess that Izzy's not
probably
available
on leave for a bit,
for a lot of stuff right now. So you're not gonna get her on deck for any kind of game like this for any time soon. I don't think. Aesthetically, it is so excellently executed on the VHS aesthetic and the terrible action poster vibes.
Yeah, this is like the broadest possible pastiche of all action genres.
It has Jacob Wysocki, who we haven't had in a Dimension 20 so far.
Oh, yeah.
Who is a man possessed of intense roadie energy.
He's kind of my dude.
Ify, Ify playing a nerd, playing a guy who is pretty much Ify, which is really excellent.
It's funny, yeah. I really enjoyed the interpretations of the identities that different players chose to run with, which at several points Brendan indicates is not like a pre-chosen thing. Like if he just at one point decides that the character exists and is talking inside the other character's head.
Yeah, that was a gimmick that Ify came up with for one shot, and then Brendan's like, yeah, cool, do that. Everyone should do that.
This guy's like making fun of him. But like, that never happens for, say, Izzy's character, who's essentially a John McClane.
The other thing is there's a lot of gender in this.
There's a lot of gender. Yeah, Beardsley's character is like a weird uncle, I'm gonna say.
Uncle fuckboy.
Trailer park uncle.
Kind of, but he's definitely a fuckboy. Like, he is a guy who
has not trailer park like racist. Trailer park like, mobile handyman.
Yeah, definitely in that vibe. But he gets jammed into essentially the porn version of Black Widow.
Who was I think? Oh, Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Yeah.
That's, the character from Entrapment is instantly the one that I thought of.
Yeah, and Rekka plays a grandma jammed into the body of, I kid you not, a early 20s Grant O'Brien. Like, the character art of G13 is
really?
based on the picture of Grant that he shared in that breaking news as a kid.
Well, okay, but Grant is not also a slimy hacker.
No. And they all do a lot with this. Usha has to grapple with being hacked by the hacker that she's possessing.
They have like an antagonistic relationship.
There's a lot of really interesting questions like, what's your relationship to your body? And if your body had its own personality, what would it think of you? And, like, that's queer as hell. That is incredibly fucking queer. Their boundaries and parameters of what stories are allowed to do. There's so much stuff which is, like, deliberately shouting out the ridiculousness of the media form it's intended to. There's a point where a character is, like, in the first session, there's a biker who is chasing a car using a katana on the end of a chain, which is, like, yeah, I would have seen that in an 80s movie, and I would have thought it ruled, and then I would have tried to make it in the backyard and gone, oh no, that's dumb as fuck.
A large amount of this is like, what if Saints Row was the TTRPG, you know?
Yeah. Yep. Definitely strong Saints
Not your
Row.
earliest Saints Row.
No. There are kill counts in the billions for a while. There's
one point where the kill count is realistically more than the population of Earth, I think.
Yeah. And like, there's a lot of very fun stuff done with the premise of the hyper-violent, hyper-indulgent, hyper-media that it represents. And it has a good, sweet, happy ending. All the characters learn lessons. Some characters are complete shitheads at the end, but, they kind of were always going to be. It's a really good, heartfelt story told through the deliberately dumbest form possible. And a lot of what makes it work couldn't work outside of an actual play series. Like, you couldn't do this as a TV show. There's a point where the story gets taken over in a way you cannot do in a TV show.
Very true. And also the introduction of the explosion mechanic is masterful for this kind of nonsense. Like, there are just... Like, I've never heard people cackle like this in a Dimension 20 game before.
Yeah, there's a point
but it will happen again.
There's a point where by the way, the homebrew rules in this break at one point. There is a mechanic that Brennan introduces that he doesn't realize has a knock-on effect that leads to a problem that he then has to fix in the next session because, oh, wait, that creates a real problem. I have to fix that. And, like, that's fine. You can do that. That's a thing that games can do because they can handle it. And the idea of... And this is one of the reasons why the whole Dungeons & Dragons as omnipurpose system is a little bit of a wonky thing here because, like, you didn't need it, man. You really didn't need it. You could have just homebrewed together a system and worked on it session to session, and the players would be like, that's fine.
I mean, a Kids on Bikes reskin is... Like, there is little enough of Kids on Bikes, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that, like, I think there is exactly enough system, exactly as much system in Kids on Bikes as there ought to be, I think.
Yep.
And, like, you know, that's barely more or less complicated than just homebrewing something of this level. Because all you basically need is a bunch of things you can roll against that tell you how good you are at doing cool shit.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, that's all it is. It doesn't ever need to be more than that.
All right. Which means we come to our last season for the year. Assuming they haven't dropped, like, a holiday special. This is also ignoring Time Quangle. Because
Wait,
Time
is this
Quangle
finished now?
No.
Okay.
It's not going to finish for a couple of weeks as we record this, but also, like, it's going... This article is going up a couple of days ahead of Christmas, Fox, so...
Yeah.
And like, this is
what
also...
I mean is, we can't judge this fairly yet, because we haven't seen how it ends.
Yeah, but, Just to also note, like, Time Quangle doesn't count. Like...
Sure.
Time Quangle ain't gonna matter.
We also haven't put the... Damn! Almost made it through.
A whole session.
We also haven't put the Misfits and Magic Christmas special on here.
No.
Because it really is just more of Misfits and Magic.
Speaking of more of Misfits and Magic...
Hey!
And, this is Misfits and Magic Season 2. And assuming that Season 2 it doesn't, like, completely botch its ending, like, it's probably S tier, but we don't know.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. What I said about Evan in the first Misfits and Magic is substantially more true here.
I feel very seen.
I like what Kay's doing more than I liked what she was doing the first time, what they were doing the first time as well.
Yep. Like, Kay has an actual problem that needs addressing this time.
For that matter, so does Jammer, because Jammer was perfect the first time through as well. He's just no notes.
Yeah, Jammer in the first one, in the first season, was effectively going, hey, I'm a black student, and you need to actually accommodate you need to show some deference to just the fact that you didn't know that was different. Like, the level of racism you're on is that deep. But the current Jammer is like, I have been so emotionally disconnected from everything for so long.
Well, and, like, he brings the fundamental conflict that you ought to want from a fucking magical boarding school story, which is, you know, is it worth not getting to do person stuff in order to do wizard stuff?
Uh-huh.
Even though this session is not a magical boarding school story anymore, I won't go too much into that because it is a wild
this one
departure
goes places
from the previous, and I love that for it. But also because we're out of that setting, we don't have that problem of sometimes you're just making fun of things for not being American.
Yeah.
Because everything that's going on now is wildly outside that scope. And it's a lot more fun and interesting as far as I'm concerned. Never having been much of a, Turf Wizard School fan myself.
Yeah. I mean, I was a fan of similar kinds of narratives, but like, you know, they were older and predated that. Big shrugs. So, I
was always turned off by any story where the characters had to wear school uniforms.
Whereas to
fundamentally don't care for that.
Whereas to me, that was just very normal.
I mean, I'm not saying wearing school uniforms is not normal. I hate it because it's normal. I don't want to be reminded that school exists and you have to go there and they'll make you wear a stupid skirt.
Well, hey, just so you know, American schools don't have to do that, Fox. So the fact that they keep making these things very American, yeah, got you coming and going on that one. So yeah, that's the current available 23-ish seasons of Dimension 20 that we have watched or not watched this year. Just this year.
And of them, one is bad.
Yeah, one of them is actively bad. One we didn't watch because it doesn't interest us, and one we didn't watch because the person behind it seems to be a sex pest. Beyond that, like, the fact that Neverafter is like one of the weakest ones we have here, the fact that Coffin Run is one of the weakest ones.
Yeah, and like I know, we essentially discontinued our Netflix subscription at the same time as we picked up
Dropout.
Dropout. And if you want to interpret that as I would rather watch any one of these shows except Fantasy High whatever last year, more than anything that's on Netflix at the moment, that's an accurate interpretation of this podcast, I think.
And the real test for me is the fact that I have had moments of going, do I want to rewatch The Seven?
I probably rewatch that. That's a lot of good moments.
Yeah. And the fact that this stuff has in some cases gotten me to look at the work of other connected people. I have Roll20 has a bunch of games where Abria has run short session games to show off the Roll20 software.
Ooh.
And that has had, for example, Brennan in them. And I'm like, I'm down. I would love to see her do more work. I love what she does. I think she is an excellent storyteller, and I think she has a great sense of drama. I
do really enjoy her games.
And one of the other things is, this variety has shown me that there are people, like, consider, again, Rekka. I really disliked, effectively, the first campaign we watched Rekka in, which was Mice and Murder. But I really disliked what she did.
I really disliked it, he says, staring at it in the S tier.
Yeah, but I really disliked Rekka's contribution to that. But at the same time, The Seven and Never Stop Blowing Up, she absolutely smashes it. So, like, it's a thing that actual play can do, which is, like, the degree to which you are suited to it and the degree to which it is a matter of play really creates this interesting difference to other types of storytelling.
This is much like reminding myself that I don't have a problem with Ali Beardsley. I have a problem with Kristen.
Yeah, Kristen sucks. And to be fair, Season 3 Kristen sucks. Season 2 Kristen is a bit bad. Season 1 Kristen is fine.
Very understandable.
Yeah.
In a difficult place and very sympathetic.
Yeah, and like the problem of the character is that she ran in a loop. And turns out that when your loop involves "and then God died," it diminishes the value of everything a little.
Well, I mean, the first time it enhances the value of it.
First time.
Like, I am extremely pro killing God the first time.
Yeah, the first time a god dies on your watch, that's badass. The second time, it makes you look careless.
Look, if you did it on purpose, then it's good.
Yeah.
If you did it because you didn't give enough of a fuck, you might be the problem.
That said, if you want a place to start investigating these, I'm going to recommend Mentopolis. The system is effectively brand new to you. You don't need to know that much about it. It has a good, engaging mystery plot. Hank Green, who, like, is, like, all-purpose online entertainment man, is wonderful in it. The story has a wonderful way of unfolding that makes you go, oh, I'm smart for having seen that coming.
Yeah.
And, like, what it's about is really quite cool. I think of it very well as an example of how to do a good job running a game.
Is it a shorter one?
Yeah, it's 6 episodes.
Yeah, so that also makes it a good entry point, I think.
Yeah, and if you really want to give it a try and you don't want to spend any money at all, all of Escape from the Bloodkeep is on YouTube. It has Mike Trapp, it has Matt Mercer, it has Ifi Nwadaway. It is like
honestly, that's a pretty good entry point too, especially if you find parodying Lord of the Rings stuff to be funny, because you are well served in that regard.
Yeah. So there's our recommendations. There's our advice.
Yeah. You should check them all out. Enjoy.
And now the image fades out, and we have to find a way to gracefully end this audio part.
Oh shit!